Tonight, Bryant and the Cubs take on Mike Trout and the AL West champion Angels. It's Cactus League baseball next. It is an absolutely spectacular afternoon here in Mesa, Arizona. We're at Sloan Park, the spring training home of the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs getting ready to entertain the visiting Los Angeles Angels here today. Two teams with high hopes heading into the 2015 season. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mesa. Dan Schulman and Kurt Schilling with you. Glad to have you along with us. And we've got some great matchups for you today, including a guy swinging the bat as well as anybody in baseball right now here in spring training, Kris Bryant of the Cubs.
Well, yeah, he's not fooling anybody. Usually every spring you'll have some guys that'll have that breakout story, and then the season will start. This kid's legitimate. And when he steps on a big league field, whether that be opening day or 10 days from opening day, he's going to be one of the premier power hitters in the game.
And we will pursue that story over the course of the afternoon because it is the biggest topic of discussion amongst Cub fans. When will Bryant make his major league debut? Now, the Angels have a guy who's pretty good as well. Mike Trout, the reigning American League MVP. He's in the lineup here this afternoon. And is he getting better right now?
He is. And that's what great players do. They're never satisfied. When you're this young in your big league career and you've already finished in the top 2 of the MVP voting every full season and you're still working to get better, I still believe he'll be the best player I ever see in my lifetime when he's all said and done if he stays healthy.
He's hitting over 450 so far in the spring. Our Buster only had a chance to speak with Mike Trout.
Mike Trout, you're coming off an MVP season, but we always hear about you tinkering in the offseason, trying to get better. What's your focus at the plate this spring?
Yeah, I just try to be more aggressive. I try to keep the same routine in the cage, obviously, and then on the field, in the batter's box, just be more aggressive early in the count. Last couple of years, I've been taking for a strike to see more pitches, but this year I'm trying to be more aggressive.
One of the most talked about players in spring training is Kris Bryant of the Cubs. You've got a chance to see him on the field. What did you see?
Oh, yeah, unbelievable power. Finally got to meet him today. I've been watching him, unbelievable, player. Stupid pop. I talked to a bunch of the guys over there, Rizzo. What an unbelievable guy, and, he's very humble.
Mike, thanks. Dan, back to you.
There's not much higher praise than Mike Trout saying you have stupid pop, and Kris Bryant has hit 9 home runs already this spring. He's batting third in the Cub lineup here this afternoon at Sloan Park. We've got Kris Bryant, we've got Mike Trout, we've got the Cubs, we've got the Angels, we've got Cactus League action coming your way here on ESPN.
We'll do a game tomorrow ourselves, but tonight we're getting set for the Angels and the Cubs. And really cool to see both Mike Trout and Kris Bryant on the same field at the same time. The future of baseball is right there in front of all of us. And the question really around Kris Bryant, guys, is when will that future become the present? It appears as if it's not going to be for another 10 days or so. And so many people are up in arms. Where are you on this?
Well, I'm a little torn on this because rooting for the story in my career, that's what we do as writers. Who wouldn't want this guy on opening night on ESPN against Adam Wainwright? And as a baseball fan, you got to say, let's do this. But the rules are in place to hold him back for 2 weeks. And I believe that's what the Cubs are going to do. And I must say, I'm a little bit torn on whether this is an integrity of the game issue. Is it, Aaron?
I think it is. Look, this is the highest land in the world. And the best players deserve to play. And there's little debate that this guy doesn't belong in the middle of the lineup on opening day. And just consider this. If he misses the first 12 or 14 games and the Cubs were to miss the playoffs by a game, whatever the results are of Kris Bryant's season, how will that look for the Chicago Cubs, not only this year, but going forward forever?
Right. It won't look great, and we'll talk much more about this on Baseball Tonight. Scott Boras, the agent who has been very outspoken about Kris Bryant, will join us. I believe Theo Epstein will be on during the game as well. It's all about Major League Baseball service time and the Cubs trying to hold on as long as they can to have the rights to Kris Bryant. Back to Dan and Kurt, guys.
All right, guys, thank you. Yeah, you set the table very nicely for that. Theo Epstein, the president of baseball operations for the Cubs, will join us later on today, and we will talk to him about Kris Bryant, and we'll get Shill's opinion. That's not hard to do. He's going to give us his opinion about where Kris Bryant should be on opening night. Dan Shulman, Kurt Schilling, Buster Olney, the Angels and the Cubs as we are ready for baseball here in Mesa. Cole Calhoun will lead it off for the Angels, and left-hander Eric Jokic is on the mound today for the Cubs. First pitch strike taken by Calhoun, hitting .293 so far on the spring. And you can see his numbers from last year. Led off just about all the time that he was in the Angel lineup. It figures to do so again. You can see the live K-zone that will be in there during the season. So it'll help you frame pitches over the course of the year. And so far, Jokic has found the strike zone twice. After Calhoun, it'll be Mike Trout and then Albert Pujols. A strong Angels lineup coming crosstown as the 0-2 pitch runs up and in and hits him just above the right elbow. So the leadoff man is aboard as we bring you the lineup. One of the advantages here in Arizona, the spring training facilities are relatively speaking closer together than in Florida. So you get better lineups on the road, shorter bus rides. So you get guys like Trout and Pujols and Ibar and on and on. You're coming from Tempe over to Mesa as the Angels take on the Cubs.
The last 2 weeks of spring training, it's all about the shorter bus rides.
As opposed to the first 4 weeks of spring training.
You just ride about the bus wherever. Yep.
Here is Trout, the reigning American League most valuable player after finishing second for that award each of the previous 2 years to Miguel Cabrera. Put up some huge numbers last year. First pitch swinging, sharply hit to short. Addison Russell, the second one on the first, a double play. And you just got a chance to see one of the young players that Joe Madden and Cubs fans are most excited about. Russell starting the double play. Meanwhile, Javier Baez, the second baseman, is still down after getting taken out of the bag by Calhoun. Appears to be okay. Good sportsmanship on the part of both players. As Calhoun says he didn't mean it, Baez says, I know you didn't. So left elbow right in the chest or the midsection. Yep. We've already seen 2 of the young players. We talked a lot about Kris Bryant, but Baez, although he has really struggled to make contact at the major league level, Joe Madden thinks very highly of him. His defense, his base running, his baseball acumen, as Madden put it before the game. And Addison Russell, Buster, is a guy Joe Madden says I've never had a guy like this before.
And he raves about Baez's toughness. He talks about how he's a guy he believes just loves baseball, works to stay on the field every opportunity he can.
2 down, nobody on, top of the first, and Albert Pujols is the batter. Albert hitting .300 on the spring. He's got 3 home runs so far. Had a good year last year with 28 homers, 105 runs driven in. And this figures to be, I would think, Schill, the 1, 2, 3, Calhoun, Trout, and Pujols. That's the way it looks like it'll be for the Angels.
Well, hopefully it'll be that way for 6 months.
Changeup down and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Mike Socia, hard to believe he's in his 16th year now managing the Angels. They had the best record in baseball last year. Won 98 games during the regular season, and then were swept in the division series by that runaway freight train known as the Kansas City Royals in October, as the Royals got all the way to Game 7 of the World Series. Ground ball out to end the inning. Jared Weaver will be on the mound for the Angels when we come back. And Cubs phenom Chris Bryant is coming up third.
The philosophy of
every game. They get about 15,000 here. People up on the berm, as you can see, beyond the left and right field fences, and they're excited about their Cubs. They had one heck of a winter. They've got a lot of young talent, including Chris Bryant, who leads baseball with 9 home runs so far this spring. And yes, he is in left field today for the first time. He's played third base the entire spring and last year as well. And let's not forget Anthony Rizzo, kind of a grizzled old veteran on this Cub team right now, was second in the National League. Only Giancarlo Stanton had more home runs last year.
It feels like a new era with the new players, with Joe Madden, with the renovations at Wrigley Field. It does feel like the Cubs are starting over.
Joe Madden, after such a successful run with Tampa Bay, exercising an out clause in his contract, and was hired as the manager of the Cubs. Jared Weaver is on the mound for the Angels today.
Yeah, this is the final 1 to 2 starts of the spring when a veteran guy is trying to do something. For me, it was always about pitch count. This start was the one I wanted to stretch out. You're probably going to see him go around 80 pitches, hoping to get 6 or 7 innings.
Line drive, base hit into left field. And Baez, the big turn, will stop at first. So not only is he okay after the injury in the top of the first inning, but he comes up with a base hit, a guy who's really been struggling to make contact.
Yeah, you watch the K zone. You watch the glove to where it starts to where it finishes. He leaves that ball middle. Still kind of gets him out in front, breaks his bat, but strength-wise, he's going to do that quite a bit.
The Cubs have been talking about how Baez is showing up at 5:45 every day, working in the batting cages, trying to implement some of these adjustments, and it's just a question of bringing them into the game.
Last year, 52 games with the Cubs. Baez hit 169, and he struck out 95 times in 213 at-bats, and he is not a given to make the team out of spring this year, says Joe Madden, and say the Cubs. There's Addison Russell, and he'll take upstairs. Russell figures to be the shortstop of the future for the Cubs. The question is, when is the future? They've got Starlin Castro, a three-time All-Star, at short right now, but at some point, will Castro be traded? Will Castro move to another position? Russell's one of the guys they picked up from Oakland in the big trade last summer. A career 300 hitter in the minors, just 21 years of age.
I think sooner rather than later, you're going to see him move into the field and Castro move on.
There's Bryant waiting on deck. Leadoff man aboard for the Cubs. Baez is going. Pitch taken up and away. Throw down and not in time. A close play at second on the throw by Iannetta, but safe at second with the stolen bases. Baez.
They got a great jump.
And you can see by the way Giovitello was getting ready to throw the ball to short. He thought they had him.
Yeah, oh yeah.
3 balls and a strike on Russell.
Madden was talking about Baez. The thing that he raved about the most was his base running. He talked about his instincts on the game really translating once he gets to first base. He said you can see it all the time.
Big swing and a miss. Full count on Russell. Weaver, a guy who doesn't throw that hard, doesn't throw as hard as he used to, but still has been extremely successful. Had a very good year last year. Won 18 games. 18-9 with a 3.59 ERA. Made every start through 213 innings. Baez heading for third on the ground ball to short, and he is, they call him out, but then the ball bounced out of the glove of the third baseman Featherston. So safe at third is Baez, and safe at first is Russell.
That's the only play he has right there. He knew he wasn't going to make the throw to third. I'm not so sure he probably should have gone on that either.
So first and third, nobody out. And here's Bryant. And a swing and a miss, 0-1. If you don't know the background of Chris Bryant, the second overall pick out of the University of San Diego in 2013. He hit 43 home runs last year between AA and AAA. He's tearing it up here in Arizona this month.
Dan, he's the talk of baseball. I mean, when you go into clubhouses and you're approaching players and you say, what have you seen this spring? In Arizona, the first name everybody brings up is this guy's name.
Second name is probably the other guy on the other team.
Mike Trout. Yeah. We're looking at a lot of the future of baseball here. And the issue with Bryant, and we'll get into it in more detail, is will he start the season with the Cubs or won't he? And the situation is this. There are 183 days in a baseball season from opening day until the end of the season. If you are on a major league roster for 172 of those days, you get a full year of service time. If Bryant starts the season with the Cubs, plays the whole year with the Cubs, he'll be a free agent in 6 years after the 2020 season. If they leave him down and they bring him up in 12 days after the start of the season, the Cubs have 10 games in those 12 days. They can delay his free agency a year to 2021. You can clearly see the business side of it. You can clearly see, and Carl and Booney and Tim Kirchin talked about this, and you talked about it, Kurt. You can clearly see the other side of it. And you've talked about the message you think it sends to the players if he's not on the team.
As a player, the one thing you always expected was the front office and the people outside the clubhouse to give as much as they asked of the players. And if he doesn't start the season in the big leagues, you're sending a message that the business decision overrides wins and losses. And I don't believe, based on talking to Theo, he's probably not going to start in the big leagues. So the question
As he takes a curveball for strike 3 call.
The question is, if I'm a Chicago Cub and I go to Theo and say, okay, are we trying to win a World Series, or are we, I think Theo is looking for the what's in the best interest of the club, and the players look for what's in the best interest of today.
Theo Epstein, the president of baseball operations for the Cubs, will be joining us in the booth later today, and we're going to pose this very question for him. I mean, Buster, you've been to every town, every camp in both Florida and Arizona this year. What kind of response, reaction do you hear about the way this thing's may be going?
Well, I asked an evaluator to give me a comp on Bryant.
Runner goes from first, throw down, and safe at second. Stolen base for Russell. So 2 steals in the inning for the Cubs, and second and third one out for Jorge Soler, another one of their talented young players.
In other words, name a player who Bryant is a lot like, and the name I got back was Mike Schmidt, who's a Hall of Famer. And I said, is he part of the Cubs team at the beginning of this season? He said, Bryant was the Cubs' best third baseman last spring. That's the consensus you get when you talk to scouts with other teams, that he already is one of the best power hitters in baseball.
Mike Socia brings the infield in. The batter is Soler. We'll talk a lot about Bryant, but he's not the only good young player that the Cubs have. Jorge Soler is the kind of guy, when he walks by you onto the field or in the tunnel, you turn around and go, who was that guy? And this is a 6'4", 215-pound outfielder. Spent some time, as Cubs fans well know, with the team last year. Did very well. Fly ball to shallow left field, and it is going to be caught by a charging Joyce. Throw to the plate, not in time. And the sac fly for Soler will score Baez with the first run of the game.
Yeah, the consensus is they have a ton of young talent, and that this kid might be the best of all of them when all is said and done.
Well, some of them are homegrown. Some of them were acquired in the last year or so, as the Cubs have made a number of trades. But again, maybe the shortstop of the future in Addison Russell. Chris Bryant, whether it's in third or left, whether it's opening night or 2 weeks later. Soler seems entrenched in right. They're hoping Baez can make more contact and solidify a spot at the big league level. And there are more on the way. And that's why this guy, one of the reasons why this guy is so excited to have his new gig. Shift on for the Angels. Runner at second, 2 down, and the batter Anthony Rizzo. He of the 32 home runs a year ago.
Yeah, the comparable you hear with Addison Russell is Barry Larkin. And when we talked to Joe Madden earlier, he said he thinks Soler is the one who's sort of being obscured by all the conversation about Chris Bryant, considering how good he is.
Well, here's what Joe Madden said about Soler before the game. He reminds me of Vladimir Guerrero with plate discipline. That's a scary thought.
Terrifying.
That's a good player. And right into the shift. Inning over. Cubs get a run at the end of one here in Mesa. They lead the Angels 1-0. Wayne Shulman. We go to the top of the second inning. Some Cactus League action for you. Beautiful day. And the Cubs lead the Angels 1-0 here in the early going. Pujols is here. Mike Trout is here. A lot of the regulars are here. And C.J. Cron, the DH, will lead it off and take outside. Ball one from Eric Jokic. Cron figures to get a lot of DH at-bats again for the Angels. In the cleanup spot today, but David Freese is not here today. He could find himself in the cleanup spot. Remember, Howie Kendrick is no longer an Angel. That was one of the changes they made after the season. We look back to last year, and it was a great regular season for the Angels. Nobody in baseball won more games than the Angels did last year, 98-64. But then they were swept out of the playoffs in the division series by the Kansas City Royals in December. Howie Kendrick traded to the Dodgers. Young pitcher Andrew Heaney, a left-hander, comes back to the Angels, and Josh Hamilton reportedly suffering a relapse in the offseason, also undergoing shoulder surgery. And according to published reports, Buster awaiting his fate. And when do you expect a resolution on Josh Hamilton's situation?
In checking with sources with Major League Baseball today, they expect that there will be an announcement from Major League Baseball about what Josh Hamilton's situation and his discipline will be.
Am I correct in understanding it could be rehab, it could be a suspension, it could be a combination, it could be neither? Are all those possibilities?
It depends on how an arbitrator decides the way this case is being decided and where Josh Hamilton would fall in the range of discipline. And once that's determined, then Rob Manfred, the new commissioner who has purview in this case, can decide exactly how long the suspension is going to be.
He said a lot of injuries the last couple of years. Of course, a former MVP back when he was with the Texas Rangers. In his absence, they've got Calhoun in right. They've got Matt Joyce picked up from Tampa Bay, Colin Cowgill to platoon and left. And of course, they're set in center with Mike Trout. So they've still got some pretty good options out on the outfield.
Well, they did what they did last year without much from Josh. I go off the field for this. I, as a player, former player, as a person, I want to see this end well for him, regardless of whether he gets back on the field or not.
Eric Ibar will loop one into center field. A base hit for the longtime Angel shortstop. In fact, he is the longest serving member of the Angels. And he's aboard with a one-out single. Yeah, I think everybody in and outside of baseball just hoping for a happy ending for Josh Hamilton here in this story and a good resolution, hopefully sooner rather than later. Here's Chris Iannetta. The Angels catch it with a runner at first and one out. Ionetta's numbers from a year ago.
Dan, one of the moves that really worked out for the Angels in the offseason, in December they went out and traded for Matt Joyce for outfield depth. But with Hamilton now, his situation up in the air, even with the shoulder injury situation up in the air, Matt Joyce, really important for this lineup coming over here. And he's shown in the past he has a lot of capability doing some damage.
And they figure to have Joyce maybe in and out of the DH spot a little bit. Cron can DH, and you know Albert Pujols will get some time as the DH. He DH'd about 40 times last year. So like a lot of teams are doing now, they kind of rotate 3 or 4 guys through the DH spot. There aren't that many David Ortizes anymore. Most teams are using the DH as a place to give 3 or 4 different guys a partial day off every now and again.
I think that one of the changes is the schedule now with so many interleague games that you need versatility. It's become even more valuable with that new schedule.
And a ground ball to second. There's 1 and 2. Second double play turned in as many innings by the Chicago Cubs. And welcome back to Sloan Park. Here's our vantage point up here in the broadcast booth. Dan Schulman, Kurt Schilling, Buster Olney. Where's that camera? Where is that camera? Beyond the third base dugout? I have no idea where the camera is.
We're just looking.
We're just looking. We're just looking out here. What was your first year in a major league spring training? In a major league camp?
1989.
Does this park remind you at all in any way of the park you were at in 1989?
I never played in a park like this until I was in the big league.
This is unbelievable. This could be a big league park.
Absolutely.
You put a second deck on. This is a big league park. It's gorgeous. Yeah. Just in its second year.
This is not a little thing by any stretch, obviously, with the amount of money invested in this. But when you're talking about free agents and you're talking about players and the things that they look at, when the money starts to equal out, it's the things like spring training. You know, how do you take care of the players' families and the things like that end up making the guy's decision.
By the way, for the Angels, Colin Cowgill has come into the game in right field. Remember, Cole Calhoun was hit by a pitch in the top of the first inning. I don't know if it was that or the collision at second on the play where Baez was shaken up briefly, but for one reason or another, Calhoun is out of the game. Mike Olt is the batter for the Cubs. And it's not only the main stadium. It's as you say, it's the workout facility and the clubhouse and the video or whatever, everything they've done.
I would tell you, from a player's perspective, this is probably on the bottom of the list of things that are a big deal to players. The facility, the weight room, the training room, all of those things that only you get to see end up being very big because that's where you spend a ton of your time.
Jam shot, ground ball. That's going to leave some sting in his hands as Olt grounds out for the first out of the inning. While we have a moment, we want to send our best to our buddy John Kruk, who underwent shoulder surgery today. Look at him. Look at him.
Wow.
He looks good.
And he
look at that. He's got the BBTN.
Wow, he is just
tank top.
miserable though. Look at he's Kruk. Oh my goodness.
What a team guy.
How about that? Krucky, if you're watching, our best, buddy, and we'll see you opening night at Wrigley. Dress warm. Look at Krucky.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, got the shoulder, and just like a ball player, right? Get it taken care of early.
Yeah.
We need you for opening day.
Yep.
There's Wellington Castillo, the catcher.
Thank goodness he's a lefty.
Chill, you saw Jared Weaver just break a bat right there. When I was talking to Drew Butera, the backup catcher for the Angels, he said that Jared Weaver reads the swings of hitters as well as any pitcher he's been around. What does that mean?
Well, I'll tell you what it means. It obviously it signifies a high baseball IQ, number one. But number two, stuff-wise, he's a guy you almost feel like has to have an advantage somewhere that other guys don't have. The only other guy that I saw that could do it that well was Pedro. And think about that intelligence with Pedro's stuff, which is why he, lost one game in the decade, it felt like, when he was over in Boston. But this guy's a winner, and he's very, very underrated.
Showed up about 20 pounds heavier than last year. Says he wants to work deeper into games than he did last year. Now the ground ball. Castillo is retired, and now with 2 outs, Eric Jokic will come up. Joe Madden has been experimenting with a pitcher hitting in the 8th spot, and he says it has to do with a couple of things. Some of it is can the pitcher hit. Some of it is wanting to get your number 9 hitter, maybe another guy on base before the number 3 hitter. But a lot of it, he says, Schill, has to do with whether or not he thinks the pitcher, his pitcher, will go deep into the game. If he thinks he's a guy who will go deep into the game, then he might hit him 9th. But if he's maybe a 5-6 inning guy, he'll hit him 8th, trying to move him up a spot in the order. So he might have the opportunity to make that double switch earlier in the game.
Okay. Sure.
You don't buy it?
No. There are a couple guys, and Mike Hampton. Maddox can handle the bat decently well.
Oh, Travis Wood of the Cubs.
Travis Wood, Micah Owens.
Yeah.
But no matter how good your pitcher is, your position players are clearly better hitters.
Eric Jokic strikes out on 3 pitches, inning over, 2 in the books in Mesa. Cubs up 1-0. In Mesa, Dan Schulman, Kurt Schilling, Buster Olney. Cactus League action for you as opening day nears. The Cubs leading the Angels 1-0. Is this what it's always like in March here in Arizona? This is my first time doing a game ever
Absolutely.
in Arizona. This is what. So how do we get out here for like 6 weeks next year?
So you were serious.
Hold out.
So you were serious this morning when you said, "I'm coming out here for a week."
I'm coming out here. It's got to be done. It is great out here. It's great in Florida too.
This is Cub territory.
Yes.
So this is one of the things. Excuse me. You know, we're about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks away from the end of camp. If you're still in camp, you are an older minor league player that they're trying to figure out, make a decision on, or you're a younger player who still has a shot. You know, this kid pitching right here, he's throwing the ball well, but he's a left-hander.
And Matt Joyce, who has not had a lot of success against lefties in his career, just hit a rocket off the center field fence.
Just jinxed the heck out of him.
Yeah, you did. He's aboard. Joyce is aboard with a leadoff double.
If your parents are watching, I apologize. But this is one of those. You talk to Joe when they're talking about their bullpen and lefties. This is a kid who can figure into the mix.
I think what people sometimes forget is you're not just trying to make the team now. You're just trying to put a thought in the manager's head for May, June, July, because it's not a 25-man season.
And you cannot start a season with 10 big league pitchers in your organization. You have to have 12, 13, 14, 15.
Leadoff double, and here is Taylor Featherston, who's playing third base today for the Angels. Shows bunt, and he gets it down. And the sacrifice will advance the runner. Featherston is a Rule 5 player, and he is one of 4 players vying for the second base position for the Angels that for so many years was manned so capably by Howie Kendrick. Featherston, a Rule 5 player from Colorado, meaning if he doesn't stick with the team, the Angels have to offer him back to the Rockies. They've also got another former Rocky in Josh Rutledge. They've got Grant Green, who played a fair bit of second base for them off and on over the last couple of years. And they've got the guy in the batter's box right now, Johnny Giavotella, former Kansas City Royal. 2 of these 4 are going to make the team, it sounds like. One is the second baseman, one is the utility guy. But Mike Socia will tell you, nobody's really come out and won the job, stolen the job yet. They're still in the evaluation process right now.
Well, in Featherston, if he's going to make the team, he's got to do stuff like he did just then. Dropping a bunt, showing that he has a lot of different skills to help the team.
Some would say that as a Rule 5 guy, you've got a leg up on the competition, because if you don't make the team, they've got to offer you back to the original organization, and they could lose you.
But I think a lot of that depends on the team.
Yeah.
If you're the Tampa Bay Rays, you're much more open to bringing in a kid who still needs work, whereas the Angels are hoping to contend.
Yeah. Now, there's another factor, too. Johnny Giavotella, it's whether or not you have options left. And Giavotella is out of options, meaning if the Angels tried to send him down, he would have to go through waivers. If he got claimed, he'd be gone. The other 2, Rutledge and Green, have options. So, yes, what happens on the field is very important, but there are other factors at play.
If this was a horse race, Giavotella would be the favorite at second base right now.
Well, if he's leading the race and he's out of options, he's got a pretty good shot right now.
He's got a pretty
right?
good shot.
Yeah. 3 balls and a strike.
One of the things I love about this part of spring is you've got 18 players who might have 18 different agendas right now. Opening day starts, you're trying to win the game. Everybody gets that, but at this point in camp, you've got young guys still trying to make the club. You've got pitchers working on stuff. You've got hitters working on stuff.
You got managers working on stuff. Infield in.
And Giavotella finds a hole up the middle for an RBI single to tie the game.
This was the biggest when I in spring training. This was the biggest start of the spring for me.
The
next to last one.
Why is that?
Well, I wanted to get over 100 pitches, so on opening day, I knew the pitching coach and the manager weren't looking at the clicker, and I could go and do what I needed to do to try and get to the 9th inning.
Now, a few days ago, this looked like it was going to be John Lester's start for the Cubs, but Lester has experienced what is commonly known as a dead arm phase, a tired arm. And he missed his last start, and then instead of starting in this game today, he started a game at the minor league complex this morning. Only threw 55 pitches, and Joe Madden told us before the game that Lester's next start will be in a minor league game as well. but he is still on target to start opening night against the Cardinals. Your thoughts?
I have so many. I don't know. There's nothing normal about that.
Which part of it?
The pitch count piece to it.
Yeah.
The simulated game. I can understand avoiding a game at this point in camp against a team in your division, which isn't the case here. In talking to him, he doesn't sound like he's hurt, but that 55 pitch outing is what you do kind of your second or third outing in camp.
Now, the reason Joe Madden say they had Lester in the minor league complex is you can control the environment. If he gets to, say, pick a number, 20 pitches in an inning, and they want to end the inning, they end the inning because it's a B game. It's a minor league game. You can't do that here in front of 15,000 people in a major league game.
But that's the kind of thing you hear when a guy's coming off the DL and rehabbing, more than your ace getting ready for opening day. But John is at a point in his career where he maybe has a routine or a program that he goes by that's different than most guys.
Well, Lester, in speaking with reporters after he threw that game today, he essentially said, hey, everything's normal. He liked the idea that they pulled back. He said there's no reason to push it in spring training. Show, when you hear that, what do you think? It just doesn't feel normal to me. 55 pitches going to maybe 65, 75 is nowhere near a workload for opening day. Now, he's going to go out on opening day and have, he's going to have a pitch count. And he's not a guy that works inside the strike zone. Well, he does, but he doesn't. He's not. He can throw 100 pitches and shut you out in 6 innings.
Theo Epstein, president of baseball ops for the Cubs, who will join us later on this afternoon. 7th inning to be exact. Slow chopper to short, to second one, and that's all they're going to get as they force the lead runner. So 2 outs. Cowgill aboard on a fielder's choice. And here's some of the video from earlier today of John Lester starting in the minor league game. 6 years, $155 million contract for the free agent, formerly of the Red Sox and then for the A's for a couple of months last year. And, the young players have excited Cub fans tremendously. Joe Madden's hiring has excited Cub fans tremendously. John Lester's signing sent them over the top.
And that's why everyone's watching him so closely. His fastball today up to about 93 miles per hour. David Ross, who was brought over, his former catcher with the Red Sox, now with the Cubs, said that today command of his secondary stuff wasn't that big of a deal, but both Ross, or it wasn't that good, Ross and Lester were saying, hey, there's time to work through that.
You see who that is, kiddo? That's Mike Trout. How many 27 jerseys do you think they're selling in Orange County over the last few years?
Probably a couple.
So Mike Trout has said 2 things, at least 2 things, but 2 things that he is working on for this year. One is maybe being a little bit more aggressive on the first pitch. He hardly ever swung at the first pitch the last few years. And 2 is laying off the high pitch, which was, and we talked about this in some of the games that we had involving the Angels last year. When he chased the high pitch, he was vulnerable. When he got the ball down, he crushed it. And he lines that low pitch into center field for a base hit.
If you watch the pitch before, which is exactly what you're going to have to do in a hitter's count, you're going to have to get him to swing at bad pitches in hitter's counts, and then you don't get great hitters out in the strike zone. You just don't do it. And I can't tell you, it's a pretty swing to me. Much better from here than from the mound to see it. But you're talking about, again, I think the best player in the game, and he's working to get better. He's working on stuff in the wintertime. Maybe it's just not leading the league in every category. He's working on that or something.
Well, you said earlier, you did a Sports Center hit earlier, and you said you think he's going to be the best player of your lifetime.
If he stays healthy, I absolutely believe that.
Well, and guess what? The numbers back you up. Because the numbers he's putting up at the beginning of his career are the numbers that we've seen out of only all-time greats.
Well, 3 full years, you win 1 MVP, and you finish second the other 2 times.
And could have won all 3.
Could have won all 3. Guy has to hit a triple crown one year to beat you. As Pujols sends one foul down the third baseline. When he first came up, I think the speed was the first thing that grabbed you. But over the last couple of years, it's morphed into more of the power that really grabs you. 93 home runs in his first 3 seasons, and do you hit him first, do you hit him second, do you hit him third? It looks like he's going to be the number 2 hitter at the outset again for the Angels.
Look at Willie Mays.
That's pretty good company.
Oof. But my father always said Mickey Mantle was the greatest player he ever saw, and when he talked about Mickey, that's what Mike reminds me of when you see him play. All the things he can do. He can beat you everywhere on the field, and he's got this desire to be better.
He's 23 years old, and the second home run he hits during the regular season will be the 100th of his career. And Dan, as you mentioned, we talk about his speed and we talk about his defense. It almost seems like the power's the third wheel, but that's such a huge part of what he does.
He had 36 home runs last year. And home runs are not as plentiful as they were a decade ago. They're harder to come by. 1-2 the count on Albert Pujols. He grounded out his first time up. Soler heading over. That's a fair ball. And it will be a ground rule double for Pujols to drive in a run and give the Angels the 2-1 lead. And he's not happy with the swing. He got the result, but it's more about the process than the result here in spring training.
Dan, I watched the Angels take batting practice yesterday, and it was absolutely striking how much their hitters work on taking the ball to the opposite field. And Cole Calhoun said, you know who that comes from? Mike Trout and Albert Pujols. As great as they are, they focus so much on taking the ball to the right side. And you can see it's an effort in what they do every day in practice.
Trout at third, Pujols at second, a 2-1 lead for the Angels, and the batter is C.J. Cron. Who do you guys see as if it is Calhoun, Trout, Pujols, who do you see as the cleanup hitter? As Cron sends one down the right field line, that's a fair ball. That's going to cash in a couple of runs. Skip all the way down into the corner. Cron is around second, heading to third, and will be in there standing up. The ball skips past third base, backed up though by Bryant, the left fielder, coming down the line. There's some of the lack of fundamentals that Joe Madden was upset about earlier in the spring. He's been happier lately, but that relay from start to finish and everything in between was kind of sloppy for the Cubs.
You asked the question, who could be the cleanup hitter? It might be C.J. Cron. It might be Matt Joyce. It might be David Freese.
It's going to be somebody that gets pitched to. I can tell you that. And that's going to be, for me, a lot of what Mike Trout does this year is going to have to do with who's hitting in the front and behind. Watch one of his 5 tools right here.
So that was Baez who threw the ball past third base. And Joe Madden told us a few times before the game today, said if you make physical mistakes, I can live with that. You can work on that. That'll get better. If you make mental mistakes, he has no patience for that. And he aired out his team about 10 days into spring training. And part of that comes with youth, I guess.
And in talking with Dexter Fowler, he said the tone of it was like your dad speaking to you, like, you're better than that. And I know within the organization, they were happy that the Cubs actually were making a lot of mistakes early in camp to demonstrate to Joe Madden just how much work they have to do in their defense.
Here's Ibar.
And like any manager, you heard him talk. Physical errors are going to happen. They're part of the game. You expect that, especially with young, aggressive players. The mental stuff is what they don't stand for.
Popped up right side and just back out of play down the line. Now 2 more spring training telecasts coming your way here on ESPN before opening night on the 5th of April. Tomorrow it'll be the Red Sox taking on the Braves at 1 o'clock Eastern time. And then next Thursday on the 2nd of April it is the Yankees and the Tigers from Lakeland. Baseball rules on ESPN tomorrow and next Thursday, both at 1 p.m. on ESPN and Watch ESPN. Ibar spraying the ball around. Wow. They're not messing around.
No, that's a scrum.
Yeah.
Whoever gets the ball is going to wind up paying for it.
This is like a fumble in an NFL game.
Yeah.
Got it. There we go. Now they're all buddies.
Yeah.
1-2 on Ibar. Drove in 68 runs last year. At 5th or 6th a lot in the Angel lineup. Figures to do so again. Pops one up. Baez makes the catch, and the inning comes to a close, but not before the Angels score 4 times and provide a souvenir. 4-1 Angels going to the bottom of the 3rd. We'll talk with Joe Madden in the bottom half of the inning, but first, a BBTN update. Let's go back to Florida and join Carl Ravitch.
Who they are and be honest with themselves.
All right, guys, thank you. It really is a fascinating conversation, and probably the #1 conversation that baseball fans are having around the country right now, with opening day just a couple of weeks away. We're back here in Mesa, home of the Cubs. They trail the Angels 4-1. And we are joined now by the manager of the Chicago Cubs, Joe Madden. Joe, are you with us down there?
I got you guys. How we doing?
We're doing great. I guess you heard all of that. I know this comes as a shock to you that people are talking about where Chris Bryant's going to be on opening night.
And 3 very astute gentlemen making different observations. I love all those guys. And, of course, it's a very difficult decision to make. And it's something that Theo and Jed will get done at the appropriate moment.
Well, we're going to have Theo up here. So I know you would probably enjoy it if Schilling pelted Theo with those questions.
Please do.
I will. Trust me.
Please do. Go ahead.
Rather than you, why don't you tell us, for people who haven't seen a lot of Chris Bryant, I mean, everybody sees he's hit a lot of home runs. Tell us what you see when you watch him play baseball.
Well, he's a really good baseball player. He's not just a home run hitter. There's a lot of things you're going to see over the next couple of years he's going to be very good at, whether there's things to clean up at third base, but he can play there. We're looking at him at left field. Today you saw him. How about the way he backed up that overthrow coming in on the relay? Beautiful. And, of course, he's got that kind of power, but I also believe he can work a good at-bat. He's going to drive in points. And on top of that, if you talk to the guy, he's got a major league makeup. I mean, he believes he belongs here. He's going to be able to handle adversity. He's going to be able to handle, quote-unquote, pressure. There's a lot to like about him as a person beyond just a baseball player.
Joe, you guys drafted him as a third baseman, but today he's playing left field. How did that conversation go with him moving out to that spot?
Easily. He came in the other day. We were just talking about a whole bunch of different stuff. And, of course, just defense at third base. And he brought it up. He likes the outfield. There's no bones about it. He likes playing the outfield. And so I said, we want to get you out. We talked about it in the opening meeting in spring training. to get him involved out there somewhat too. He likes it. It's nothing. It's not a push. A lot of times when you ask a guy to move a position, there's a little bit of a hesitation or balking, but not with him, and he digs it. So I'm watching him. He's a great athlete. I think he could be end up being a good player at other positions.
Are you just saying nice things about him because he's right over your left shoulder?
Is that where he is right now?
He's right behind you.
KB, can you hear me?
What about some of the other young guys? We're looking at Baez at the plate right now, Russell, Soler, all these young talented players.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could even see it from up there in the booth. They're very young and very talented. You saw Javi demonstrate almost all of his abilities in that first time around, whether it's toughness on the double play, the base running acumen, just starting the game off with the base hit to left. Really working on him, working a more pro at bat right now, and that's what we're trying to get done with him. How about Addison? My goodness, you saw the double play. How beautiful was that? He works a very mature at bat already. Soler, I mean, everybody knows how good he is, I think, but nobody talks about him as much. This guy's really, really interesting to me. A combination of power and plate discipline, very unusual. Come on, Javi, move it right here.
If I'm a player, Joe, and I come to you opening day and say to you, okay, we're trying to win the World Series, but Chris Bryant's in AAA, how do those two go together?
From a distance, it looks like it might be incongruent, but I went through the same thing with Longo in 2008, and I pretty much could tell you the scuttlebutt in the clubhouse was identical. And then we ended up going to the World Series in 2008. And there's always the outcome bias situation where you automatically predict the better outcome if the guy's there or not.
Yeah.
And so I don't play that game. It's about an organization making their best guess based on what they know. And these guys have seen KB for a while, so I'm coming a little bit late. Theo and the boys have done a great job of putting this whole thing together, and Jed. So for me, I really got to do a lot of listening right now.
2 outs in the inning. Bryant in the on-deck circle. Russell, the batter. Joe, how'd you feel about John Lester's work today?
Good. I did. I was watching it very closely, and again, I'm not worried about actual numbers. His velocity got up in the normal range. Cutter was good on occasion. I just liked his face. I thought he looked comfortable. Like, I feel good. I'm fine. There's no concern on his part. You're always looking when a pitcher's coming back from whatever little hiccup it might be. They pretty much tell you how they're feeling based on if they smile easily or not, the conversation flows or not. If they hang their head a little bit. He was fine. So I was really excited about the whole thing. And he's going to come out again and do another minor league gig soon, and then be ready for opening night.
You talked to the team about fundamentals. Since you spoke to them, what have you seen in their play?
I've seen one bad game. We pitched poorly the other day in Oakland. Edwin had a tough day. But other than that, like you saw what's been going on, just down to the fact that KB backed up that play. I've seen all our left fielders do that all spring training. You saw how Javi hung in there in a double play. We're not missing cutoff guys. We really like that part of it also. Base running has gotten better. We're not making the mental mistakes on the bases. That's the thing I really got to be able to get across to our guys. You're not going to go to the dance just by hitting them. We got to play this whole game, and I believe in the liberal arts approach to teaching baseball.
Hey, Joe, thanks very much for the time. We'll see you opening night. Have a great season.
Can't wait, guys. Be well. Thanks.
Thank you. You too. Welcome back to Mesa. Our thanks to Joe Madden, the manager of the Cubs, for spending some time with us. With Buster Olney, Kurt Schilling, I'm Dan Schulman. A Cactus League action coming your way here from Sloan Park. The Angels and the Cubs. The Angels leading 4-1 as we go to the top of the fourth inning. Chris Iannetta will lead it off. Eric Jokic, left-hander for the Cubs, back out for his fourth inning of work. And a swing and a foul back, 0-1. As you can hear in the words of Joe Madden, he's excited not just about Bryant, although he's very excited about Bryant. He talks a lot about Soler and says, hey, don't sleep on Jorge Soler. Everybody's focusing so much on Bryant. It's a pretty amazing talent they think they have out there in right field.
Well, when you look at what Theo did in Boston with Pedroia and Lester and Ellsbury and all that talent that he put together in those years, he did the same thing here, and maybe even a better job here.
So let me ask you this. Are they ready to win now? Are they a playoff team this year?
They could be. Next year, I think it's a no-brainer because I think whatever they're missing, excuse me, whatever they may be missing, if it's a deadline deal they make this year, that might happen.
Right.
But I think whatever hole they have, they fix this winter, and they have the talent to make a deal and get an impact player, maybe a Cole Hamels.
Yeah, they went after a couple of players, Buster, this winter that they actually didn't get. They could be. They were talking to Shields too, right? At some point, the Cubs, but they. I mean, they were looking for more players, but they did get Lester. They've got great young talent. Do you think there's another frontline starting pitcher who will be a Cub in 2016?
Yeah, the expectation within the industry is that the Cubs have another guy that they're going to land a big starter sometime between now and next spring training and next year's free agent class, this fall's free agents class. David Price, who, of course, Joe Madden knows so well, Johnny Cueto. And if I were to bet the family farm on one guy being on the Cubs in 2016, it's total speculation on my part, Jordan Zimmerman. Wisconsin native. He's perfect for that ballpark, and maybe the perfect type of personality you'd be looking for as you're looking to turn the corner.
And maybe as underrated a guy as there is in baseball, if you compare his performance to his name value, Zimmerman doesn't get the play that some of the other top-line starters get.
I'll tell you another guy underrated with the name. The Cubs already have him, Jake Arrieta. If you look at what he's done, he's become a completely different pitcher and a potential top-of-the-rotation guy.
0-2 the count on Matt Joyce. Ground ball to the right side. Rizzo to his right. Jokic over to cover. Tap dances his way to the bag for the second out. So John Lester figures to be the opening night starter for the Cubs. Jake Arrieta was terrific with the Cubs last year. Jason Hamill re-signed after the year after he was traded to Oakland during the season. Kyle Hendricks had 13 really good starts for the Cubs last year. Then Travis Wood and Edwin Jackson, both Cubs last year. Jackson just got lit up a couple of days ago. Gave up 8 runs in an inning and 2/3. Had an ERA over 6 last year. And right now it appears to be between those two. You always hear rumors that Wood's going to get traded. But right now, you'd have to give Wood an advantage over Jackson, I would think, for the 5th spot.
Yeah, and I think Schill has it dead on, that if this team is in the race, they've got this absolute glut of position players. They're in a position, if midseason comes around and the Cardinals are struggling maybe, or the Pirates are, and the door is open for the Cubs to make a run, they've got the prospects, and they certainly have the money to go out and make a big move if they decide to.
2 outs, nobody on, and a ball and a strike on Featherston. Bryant looking on from left field.
It might sound like a strange comparison at first, but when you look at elite women's fast-pitch softball in the colleges, there's a similarity here. They recruit shortstops, and then they move those players because they're the best athletes. If you look at what the Cubs have done, and some of the other clubs going young, it's exactly that. Hey, we'll get these shortstop guys because they can play second, they can play left. Yeah. Yep. And I think it's a brilliant approach.
And there's another way, Buster, right, of young players who aren't here yet, but the Cubs are very high on as well. Right?
Oh, very much so. And I think, too, the Cubs and the Red Sox are really among the foremost teams when it comes to recognizing that over the last 3 years, we sort of have seen the pendulum swing in baseball where pitching was always the most valued thing. Now, if you have position players, that's what people need. You can find pitching in a way that maybe you couldn't 10 years ago, but you need to find good offensive players, and the Cubs seem to be building that.
Angels go in order. The much discussed Bryant will lead off the bottom of the 4th for the Cubs. When we come back, he leads the majors with 9 home runs this spring. He's due up first for Chicago in the bottom of the 4th. Bottom of the fourth here in Mesa. Dan Shulman to Kurt Schilling. Buster Olney. Spring training baseball. Angels up 4-1 on the Cubs, and here's Chris Bryant. Struck out his first time up. So, we told Joe Madden we were going to ask Theo Epstein the tough questions, and then you went right back at him.
Oh, I'm going to ask Theo.
I know you are.
And Theo knows it, so he'll be ready to make me look stupid.
1 ball, 1 strike on Bryant.
I'll tell you what I like. You watch his first at bat. He struck out on a pitch that was above the strike zone. He took it, didn't chase it. And these balls that are just off the edge, he's not chasing it as well. And then he puts a swing on a ball like that. To me, it tells me as a pitcher, he's got a lot of confidence in his feel for the strike zone, which I don't like as a young player.
Jared Weaver on the mound for the Angels, his next to last spring training start. This is down and away, 87-mile-an-hour fastball, 2-2.
That's the first pitch he's tried to overthrow today.
And he fooled him. Just take a little off the fastball. What would you call that? That was a changeup at 82?
Yeah. Little cutter. And you watch, both of these guys did what they wanted to do. He didn't go after a pitch. That's a ball. Literally the same pitch. He takes it again. He's seeing the ball well. Now he goes back out there a third time. He's ready for it. Overthrows a pitch, non-competitive pitch. And then he's looking for a chase there. Yeah. In my mind, the hitter's looking for a chase there. He gets the ball down the middle, something soft, and he freezes him. But in 2 at-bats, I haven't seen him chase a bad pitch. And that, to me, shows maturity for a young hitter.
Meanwhile, Weaver has now struck out 3 in a row, 4 of the last 5, and 5 batters in 3 1/3.
In his first start in spring training, he was throwing 82 to 84 miles per hour, and he was asked by reporters about his velocity, and he immediately was basically pushing back, saying, wait a second, like we're talking about velocity now. For him, he doesn't feel like velocity matters. He feels like he can find a way to get hitters out.
I think Jared Weaver and Justin Verlander probably have had enough of people asking them over the last few years. Okay, but about the velocity, because that's what, Verlander went from high 90s to low 90s, and Weaver went from low 90s to mid 80s. And the challenge is it reinventing yourself?
Well,
is that too strong?
The thing about the difference in those two is that Jared's always won. He's a winner. And when Justin started to have be less effective, it was a drop in velocity. But this guy right here is a winner and a pitcher. And one of the reasons why is something you and I have talked about a lot, which is, with the exception of that fastball to Bryant, he hasn't thrown a bad pitch yet. He hasn't overthrown a ball. He came in 20 pounds heavier. I was wondering about the velocity. I think he's going to be up a tick or two when the season starts, which means he'll be throwing a little bit harder. But he has not tried to be something he isn't. He's used the pitches he's always used, and he's just refining them. That's what makes him so good.
From the the extreme amateur perspective, the outsider looking in, he seems like a guy who really knows his mechanics, knows what he is, knows what he's not, and can make corrections out of the mound in the middle of a game.
He's a visual guy, much like Pedro Martinez was. He can see things. I could never do that. I counted on my catcher and video, and there are certain guys who have a feel. And with his stuff, he has a feel for pitching, and he has a feel, like I said, he doesn't throw a non-competitive pitch. He doesn't throw a 55-foot curveball or a ball to backstop. Everything he throws, you see the hitter leaning into or being prepared for it to be a strike. And when you do that, you get guys to chase, and you get guys out of their comfort zone.
And, Shell, aren't there guys who, and having spoken to a lot of pitchers through the years, there's a competitive arrogance for some pitchers, and Jamie Moyer comes to mind, who threw 80 to 82, and you speak to him about hitters, and it sounded like he was talking about big, dumb oxen.
Yep.
And I think that Jared Weaver sort of looks at hitters in the same way.
Well, yeah.
And then he drops a 66-mile-an-hour curveball on him.
Well, you're going to see, you're right, Buster. Hitters believe pitchers are dumb, and pitchers know hitters are the stupidest people on the planet. But you watch the misses. Watch the misses that he has are all around there. Look at the hitter taking these pitches. And what happens, one of the huge advantages you get is when you're around the strike zone that often, you're more inclined to get calls from the umpire on borderline pitches. And that is an enormous advantage.
And now first pitch swinging. Rizzo drills one to deep right field. And he hits a ground rule double, lined it deep into the corner for a 2-out ground rule double. We lost sight of it down. There's a hidden corner down there, so bear with me as Rizzo loped into second after stinging that first pitch from Weaver.
One of the other things I've noticed as the game has gone on, I haven't really thought about it, was rarely do you have a young player like Chris Bryant who doesn't get the recognition and the attention. Almost every one of their other young guys would be the center of attention in every other camp. And being allowed to kind of work your way into this is not a bad thing.
He seems to be handling both the attention and the ongoing question of will he start the year in the majors or not. He seems to be handling it with a lot of maturity for a guy who's as young as he is.
Yeah, at that age, I wouldn't have handled that maturely at all.
What would you have said?
Not repeatable, and probably would have gotten me sent down.
Fortunately for us who now work with you, we feel you're over that maturity hump. And you're a bit less of a risk now than you used to be.
A bit less.
Although that's the jury's still out on that. The word, by the way, on Cole Calhoun, he left with a right tricep contusion. Replaced by Colin Cowgill a couple of innings ago.
We're at that point in camp now where managers are just hoping to get their 25 through the rest of the spring training healthy to opening day.
This is Mike Gold, who may be the opening day third baseman for the Cubs. Did not play well last year, did not hit well last year. Was sent down to the minors, and not that it's a cautionary tale, but about 4 years ago, Buster, I mean, not that Mike Gold was thought of as Chris Bryant, but pretty close.
Oh, there's no question about it. And then after he had a rough stretch and the Rangers hung on to him, they wound up moving him in the deal involving Matt Garza. And the Cubs are hoping that at some point he'll revive his career here. He's shown flashes of power, but you have the big swing and miss capability with Old.
It's kind of the life of being a big-time prospect. They'll give you some time to produce, but if it doesn't happen, there's going to be another big-time prospect coming up right behind you.
And you'll get chances. I remember in Boston with Willie Mopena and Theo and making the Bronson Arroyo deal.
Speaking of power.
To left field and gone. A 2-run homer for Olds brings the Cubs back within a run.
So power to a hitter is like velocity to a pitcher, Dan. If you have it, even if you can't use it continually or you have trouble showing it, teams will always hold out hope that they'll be the one you figure it out for. Edwin Jackson's a great example on the other side. He's got a ton of pop, Mike Holt does, and that's one of the reasons why.
It's his third home run of the spring. Batter is Wellington Castillo, one of 3 catchers, and the Cubs are considering carrying all 3. Joe Madden likes the idea of having all 3, gives them a little bit more flexibility. And if you've got enough versatility with the rest of your position players, you can afford to do it. And they've got a player, Arismendi Alcantara, who can play a lot of different positions, and that he is one of the reasons that may allow them to carry 3 catchers.
And he will guarantee to have a nickname very quickly because I don't see Joe pronouncing that name more than once or twice.
Alcantara?
Yeah, double A.
You didn't exactly have a go at it right there yourself.
No.
You just double
Nope.
A?
Nope. No chance.
A strikeout, the 7th of the day for Weaver, but he surrenders the home run to Olt, and the Cubs are back within a run. Welcome back to Mesa, along with Kurt Schilling, Buster Olney. I'm Dan Schulman. Spring training baseball coming your way from Arizona, with the Angels leading the Cubs 4-3 as we go to the top of the 5th inning. And pleased to welcome in now ESPN's injury expert, Stefania Bell. Stefania, how's Orlando? How are things going over in the Grapefruit League?
Oh, it's nice and warm over here, let me tell you. Much better than the Northeast.
I think all of us who have escaped the Northeast are just happy to be somewhere warm. Let's talk about Angels pitcher Garrett Richards. Was on his way to a sensational season last year and then suffered a torn patella tendon in his knee. He is starting to pitch again. He's not going to be ready for the beginning of the season, we're told, maybe a turn or two behind. But what exactly is a torn patella tendon, and is that the kind of thing that Richards can 100% recover from in time, maybe for late April?
The good news is he can absolutely recover from this 100%. Essentially, he tore the tendon that anchors that large quadriceps muscle, the muscle in the front of the thigh, to the shin bone. It's not exactly a typical baseball injury. You see this in football with wide receivers and defensive backs. And he was making what appeared to be a simple play to try and cover first base. And he told me when I visited him this spring that he just felt a pop in his knee. He felt it curl up, and he had nothing in him. And, you know, he went down clearly in a lot of pain. But he said, thankfully, the medical staff told him he couldn't do it twice if he tried. So he's feeling very good about coming back, feeling confident in that leg. And the key here is really getting the leg strong enough so that as a thrower, you are not compensating and therefore putting your throwing arm at risk. And that's really the issue for him, and why the Angels did not want to push opening day as a target. As you mentioned, he'll probably start the season on the DL, but he won't miss long. They really just want to get him to the point where his arm is not fatigued. We heard he was a little fatigued after throwing in minor league game the other day. And so now it's just a matter of getting him ready to start the season.
Stefania, one of the most talked about injuries in baseball over the last year was the partial tear in the elbow of Masahiro Tanaka of the Yankees. And I get asked this question all the time: how long is he going to last? And so I'll just pass it on to you to answer that question.
I wish I could tell you. I'm sure the Yankees would like to know the answer to that question. They'll probably be wondering it every day. But every day that comes and goes where he looks strong and throws well and has no complaints, the better it appears for him. I remember when the injury happened, and there were a lot of people questioning the decision to treat it conservatively. And I think it was important that they went that route for a number of reasons. Number one, the athlete has to feel that there's no other option other than surgery. When you're embarking on something that's at least a year, probably longer, for recovery, and you know that there's not a guaranteed outcome, even though the outcomes are good, it's not guaranteed. Why not give a conservative effort a try? That's what he did. He was able to come back at the end of last season and make 2 starts, so he had that confidence going into the offseason. And he had, as you know, Buster, what he called a pretty typical offseason. Came into spring ready to throw. I saw him throw in his first spring training outing, and I thought he was very efficient. Another thing that bodes well for him. So he looks strong. Yes, it could all come to a screeching halt at any moment, but so could anyone's, right?
Hey, Stefania, I got one question for you. John Kruk had shoulder reconstruction. Is he going to need to do rehab with ESPN2 or the X Games before he goes to the first team?
Well, all I know is he better listen to his physical therapist. I'll tell you that right now.
Which we know is not going to happen.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
that's not a bad idea, Show. That maybe
has that job.
Yeah, maybe we start him off with some, some B games, some morning games.
Working on flat ground, flat ground announcing.
Yeah. Eventually some long toss, and let him earn it. I mean, you don't lose a job to an injury, but he's got to earn his way back.
I believe it.
No, but hey, Kurt, if anyone knows how to demonstrate how to properly go through rehab and really go through the paces and do as you're told so that you can come back 100%, I know it's you, so you can guide him.
Well, after seeing the photo today, I'm not sure I can help with that, but I'll do the best I can.
Hey, Stefania, thanks very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your time down in Florida.
Thanks, you too.
All right, take care. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Now the count on Colin Cowgill. And meanwhile, a new pitcher has come into the game this inning for the Cubs, with a very familiar face to Cub fans because he lined up against them for so many years as a member of the St. Louis Cardinals. This is Jason Mott. Had 42 saves in 2012. Missed all of 13 in the beginning of 14, recovering from Tommy John surgery. Made 29 appearances for the Cardinals last year. Signed as a free agent with the Cubs. And Buster, it sounds like he's in good shape to be a member of this bullpen right from opening day.
Yeah, although it's a work in progress from what Joe Madden says. They're trying to determine exactly which guys are going to be in the bullpen. It does seem like he's in good shape. And I think that's one of the questions about the Cubs coming into the season. The front end of the rotation looks good, but they have to solidify the back end and their bullpen as well, especially in a division where if the Pittsburgh Pirates typically have good bullpens, St. Louis Cardinals typically have good bullpens.
Runner going, swing and a miss for strike 3. Throw down and safe at second. And stolen a base is Giavotella. Javier Baez showing some pretty good athleticism.
Wow. Put him in the NFL Combine.
I don't have that vertical if I run up a staircase.
Here's Mike Trout for the 3rd time today. Trout has grounded into a double play and singled and scored.
Jason, might I throw a fastball right here?
Why?
Because when I see him during the regular season, I want him to be looking for it. I don't care if he hits it 2 miles a day. But if he's going to hunt fastballs early in the count, I just want to reinforce that in spring training. So when I see him, if I see him in October, he's looking fastball or looking hard for me early.
So you think a lot of that table is set in spring training? It
depends on the hitter. And it depends on the pitcher. You have to have a hitter that goes up there with a plan. And a lot of times, there were some hitters in spring training, I just wanted to reinforce their plan. Jeff Bagwell was a guy who I would go up and make sure I threw a fastball in a spot I know where he wanted it, where he liked it, because in my mind he was going to continue to hunt that pitch during the season and wait for it. And if you waited for it during the season, it would be 0-2 before he realized he wasn't getting it.
So you would have to balance wanting to work on what you want to work on versus trying to set up a hitter where you might get
again, depending on the hitter, absolutely.
Big cut by Trout as he fouls it off down the third baseline.
As Stefania Bell was talking about Garrett Richards, and I talked to him about the night that he blew out his knee, and after he was in the trainer's room, he went back to his hotel room in Boston, and all of his teammates went one by one, made that trek up to his room to wish him well. And he talked about how that night, Don Baylor, Jason Grilli, other teammates were saying, hey, you'll be back. And he talked about how much that meant to him to hear right away the support of teammates and everyone telling him at the end of what was really his breakout season, a year in which he contended for the Cy Young Award, hey, don't worry, you're going to make it back. Don Baylor said to him after breaking his leg last spring, hey, I made it back, you're going to make it back too.
And the ball's running on Mott. Running in on the hands of Trout for ball 4, so first and second one out. Number 1 seeds highlight a Sweet 16 doubleheader from the Women's Basketball Championship tomorrow night on ESPN. North Carolina and South Carolina, then Stanford and Notre Dame. And on ESPN 2, it'll be Iowa, Baylor, and Arizona State and Florida State. The NCAA Women's Basketball Championship presented by Capital One. The action begins tomorrow night at 7 on ESPN at 7:30 on ESPN 2. Here's Pujols. And Mott right now, Kurt's having trouble harnessing that fastball. Second time Castillo's coming out.
Well, he is, and the challenge is that before Jason had surgery, he was a thrower, and very much, if you look at his delivery, there's a bit of a stand-up to it at the finish. Instead of following through, he stands up, and he's kind of still doing that.
He's a converted catcher,
yeah,
and he looks like that.
If you look at the finish, though, that upright finish that he has is something I thought after this surgery he would get away from, but the upside is the velocity's back, and that's hopefully he can learn to taper back a little bit and get more fluid at the end of his delivery. But that's what causes a loss of command and causes the ball to run into right-handers. Now, if you watch the delivery and you watch the finish, as a pitcher, look at that ESPN sign. I want everything to be down around where the background is. And look at that front leg go stiff when he stands up. Instead of following through, he's a little stiffer than you'd like. And that can cause a lot of stress and strain for a power guy on the shoulder.
1-1 to Pujols. A High drive, deep left field, and gone. A 3-run home run for Albert Pujols. Gives the Angels a 7-3 lead. His 4th home run of the spring.
Except for Aroldis Chapman, nobody in the big leagues, to me, throws hard enough to throw fastballs after fastballs without commanding it. If you watch the fastballs, you look at the glove and look at where the ball's going. The ball's running back in because he's overthrowing. He's not working around the sides. Wow. That's not a, I mean, you would think that's not a bad pitch at 96, but Albert was hunting fastball, looking for one he could drive, and he got one. And that's what's going to happen. On the flip side, if the Angels are going to be successful and Mike Trout's going to have a great year, that's huge.
Buster, what have the reports been from what you've seen, what you've heard on Albert Pujols over the last 4 weeks?
That he looks great, and he seems almost even more trim. I mean, he's always been known as a hard worker, someone who's in great shape, but it was striking to see him for the first time this spring in terms of the condition that he's in. And on top of that, guys, you hear stories about how happy he seems and how they see him laughing more than they have in the past. And he and Mike Trout have developed a very good friendship. After their work yesterday morning, 2 of them broke away from camp. They'll play a round of golf.
4th home run in the last 6 games for Albert Pujols. And Jason Mott knew it from contact.
Yeah, he's seen that when they were both in St. Louis.
Yeah. And the only reason he kept watching it was to see how far it actually went. I've been there.
And now a line drive base hit for C.J. Cron. The Angels are beating up on the Cubs here today. And Joe Madden's on his way to the mound. That's going to be all for Mott. A tough outing for Jason Mott. The Angels up 7-3. Pitching change here in Mesa. Three Angels back here in the 5th inning at Mesa. Pitch, hit, and run presented by Scott's is the official youth skills competition of Major League Baseball. Free for boys and girls ages 7 to 14. Play your way to the national finals and have the chance to compete during All-Star Week in Cincinnati. Find a local competition in your area at pitchhitrun.com. MLB.TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service, is now available. Join the millions of subscribers. Watch every out-of-market game live in true HD. On over 400 devices. Visit MLB.TV for details. Joe Madden trying to keep Jason Mott's spirits up. What does this mean to you as a pitcher when a manager does this?
It's huge. I mean, this is one of the things that makes Joe Joe. And it makes Terry Francona Terry. I mean, they have a way of talking to players that you get to a point, and I always found this to be true. I always wanted to play for guys who I was afraid to disappoint. And Joe Madden and Terry both were guys, at least Joe, I've known Joe since I was 15 years old. They're both guys that you want to do well for. And that's different than playing for a guy other guys.
Jason Mott trying to get all the way back to where he was before Tommy John surgery a couple of years ago. Cannot get through the 5th inning. And now the new pitcher up for the minor league complex is Yohaner Negrin, a 30-year-old from Cuba. He was in AAA last year, but Iowa 1-3 with a 5.34 ERA, predominantly as a reliever. I think I asked you this last year, maybe. What was the number you were on your first Major League game?
43.
Really?
Yeah. Wow.
You must have been good.
What about you?
Well, I thought I was, but yeah, it didn't work out that way for a couple years. Yeah, I was laughing at we were down the dugout. I was watching some of the young Cubs come out. 89, 77.
Yeah, 89's on the mound right now. This ball is sliced deep into the corner. Bryant getting his first start in the outfield this spring. Chases the ball into the corner. It'll be an RBI double for Ibar to cash in another run for the Angels. Bryant has played outfield before, did it in college, but he's almost exclusively been a third baseman. Today is his first start in the outfield this spring.
But you heard Joe talk, he played center field. So he clearly has tremendous athletic ability. But the game moves at a speed up here that's just different. And until you get out there, you can't know it. It says a lot that he put him out there today in this situation. But about his makeup, too.
Here's Chris Iannetta. And Buster, from everything we've heard, Bryant's like, wherever you need me, I'll play.
That's exactly right. When I first talked to him last year, that was his attitude. And in talking with him today about playing the outfield, he said that he likes being challenged with new things on a daily basis, and he likes the idea of trying a new position today.
They've had him shagging balls, of course. They didn't just throw him out there in a game situation, so he's been working on this for a few days.
Well, and he was out there for a while, and then he came in. The first thing he said to me was, "It's really hot." But you'd hear outfielders talk about playing outfield in Arizona in spring training is maybe one of the most difficult things to do.
Well, the only reason I can speak to this is because as a pitcher I had to shag. So, I didn't. It was the first half of my career, I should say. Second half, I didn't do a whole lot of shagging. This is a nightmare to catch fly balls in compared to Florida.
The wind?
It's a high sky.
It's a high sky.
And when the ball goes up, if you're not on it, you don't ever get to it. And we eventually got to the point as pitchers where we were a hazard to the position players, so they just took us out of the outfield.
A typical March Arizona day, high 80s, low 90s, barely a cloud in the sky. Chopper toward third. Here comes Olds. And on the run, he will throw out Iannetta for the out. 2 down as Ibar takes third. The guys in the truck are wondering, is high sky a scientific term?
It's an excuse for pitchers and outfielders to make up. It's just very hard to see the ball.
I understand.
And
now you
don't.
Now you don't. No, I do because I can't see the ball here.
Okay. Whatever. Okay. Sure. High. That's higher.
That's a high sky.
That's really high sky right there.
I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
Mocking. He's mocking.
Sure, yeah. I have trouble seeing the ball when we call a game in Arizona or Florida, actually, either place. There's Matt Joyce.
Oh, here we go. High sky.
There it is. Baez there to take, and the inning is over. Angels tack on 4 more, though. 3 on a home run by Pujols, and they lead 8-3. we are back here at Sloan Park in Mesa, along with Kurt Schilling and Lester Olney. I'm Dave Schulman. The Angels up on the Cubs 8-3 here in the bottom of the 5th inning. Albert Pujols has hit a home run for the Angels. Mike Olt has hit a home run for the Cubs. And we've got a pinch hitter coming up for the Cubs against Jared Weaver, who has struck out 7 through 4. Did get touched up for the home run last inning by Olt. And he will face Travis Wood. This is a pitcher, a very good hitting pitcher, pinch hitting in the pitcher's spot. This is the second time in the last couple of days, guys, that Joe Madden has done this, as if he's trying to simulate something that could happen during the regular season.
I can't even identify this. I stunk so bad as a hitter. So.
Well, you'd be the guy who was being
right. Exactly.
For.
Yes, I would be the guy sitting on the bench going, "Thank you."
He's a guy with a 192 career average, 9 homers in 265 plate appearances. Wow. So he's got some pop.
He's not going up there to single.
Read his swing, Shill.
A lot of holes.
Compared to other pitchers.
Well, you know, and I joke about it, but in the National League, that is awesome.
He puts a good swing on it, and how about awesome. This? The pitcher with a pinch hit home run. Well, as we all know, Joe Madden will try some stuff. He's not afraid to think outside the box. And you know what? Travis Wood may have just bought himself 10 more pinch hit at bats during the season.
There are 11 guys on the pitching staff that are bitter right now because they know that this will not. Look at him. He's looking for somebody. Not a bad pitch. Outer half. Somebody yelled homer in the background.
As we mentioned, 9 career home runs in his major league career in the regular season. And
now watch the Cubs bench. Notice it's all pitchers. The position players are going, okay, this is ridiculous. But in the National League, it can be a difference between winning 18 and 20.
Well, and the way Joe Madden likes to manage, he did so many things. He did everything you could in an American League environment with Tampa Bay. Zybar circles it short, long throws not in time. Max Caesar, who's really made an impression on Joe Madden, has a chance to make the team as an extra outfielder, is born with an infield hit. But with everything Joe Madden likes to do, all the tinkering and experimenting, I mean, he could do way more of that in the National League than he could do in the American.
Well, I think I feel a lot like Joe, like I do with Buck. I don't know that Joe gets outmanaged very much, if at all. He's got one of the things I think as a player, you always had confidence in managers that put your players in the best position to succeed, and I think he does that.
But you can see when you talk to him about his roster, he's excited about the possibilities of moving people around and hitting a pitcher eighth. I mean, he's playing.
This is right. Yeah, one of the ripple effects of wanting to carry 3 catchers, for example, and he's got to try different things with what they have.
But I'm not real sure about that 3 catcher thing. If John Lester is going to be on that much of a limited pitch count early in the year, that might be an issue for them. They might need to take an extra arm.
Well, and Shield, they may simply be waiting for some team to give them the best offer, the proper offer in their eyes for Wellington Castillo, who right now really is their 3rd catcher, with David Ross being kept as the backup from Miguel Montero.
There's Baez with a chopper to 3rd and across the diamond, and he's safe. Baez hustling down the line and beats it out. Caesar into 2nd. And a good opportunity now for us to segue and bring in ESPN insider Keith Law, who writes so extensively about farm systems and prospects. And Keith, you probably have spent as much time watching and writing about the Cubs as anybody this spring, and we just saw one of the tools that Javier Baez has.
Yes, but the big tool for him is the bat speed, which is probably the best of anyone in baseball right now, and it produces ungodly power. The question with him is whether he's ever going to have the plate discipline to be able to get that to play in games. You saw the strikeout rate last year. You've seen some of it tonight even. If he can just be more selective, just get himself into better counts, I think he's 35, 40 home runs waiting to happen.
And Kurt, Joe Madden told us an interesting story. He said in the mornings he comes in and does extra hitting, and he works on these things, and he's successful at them, but he's having trouble taking that game plan into the game.
And on the flip side, you heard Buster talk to Mike Trout about the fact that he's working on stuff to take into the game to make better. it's challenging sometimes. Sometimes guys are what they are, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Hopefully, you're hoping he's young enough that he'll make the adjustment and get the feel for it.
Keith at the plate now. Addison Russell, part of the haul the Cubs got from Oakland in the deal last year. What's your read on him as a prospect?
My number 4 prospect in all of baseball. I think he stays at shortstop. He's got unbelievable hands, and his instincts both at the plate and in the field are tremendous. I think he's going to hit for an extremely high average with a good OBP, some power, and above average defense at short. Again, you've got to see him make play after play after play. His hands are so easy, so natural. But even though his range might be a little bit less than the Andrelton Simmons of the world, I think he'll end up a very good defender.
Hey, Keith, this is a question about Chris Bryant. We know the power. What do you think is his ceiling average on base percentage?
I think he could
those
end
two
up
numbers for him.
Yeah, I think he could end up a 260 to 280 hitter in batting average. Maybe he's more towards the 260 range, but 80, 90, maybe eventually 100 walks a year. He's incredibly patient. He was in college, and then he showed it again in the minor leagues last year. He just has a really good innate understanding of the strike zone. So even if he has years where he only hits 240 to 250, he'll still provide value by getting on base.
So you've got Russell is your number 4 prospect. Where's Bryant on your list?
Number 1.
Number
He's
1. Where's Soler?
Soler, I think, was about 12 on the list, and
14.
It's funny that
it's
funny that he could be 14. There you go. It's funny that he could be the 14th overall, but he's only 3rd best in the Cubs system.
There's a fly ball to left field, and Russell is retired. So here comes Soler. So we'll just let you keep rolling. What is it that scouts like about Jorge Soler?
And Soler's one of my favorites because I got to see him right around his pro debut in the Arizona Rookie League. And obviously he was a little older than the other kids in that circuit, but it was just amazing to me how good his hands were at the plate. It's a beautiful rotational swing, good follow through for power. His hands are quick, so you can really let the ball travel a little bit. And then once he gets his hands started, they're explosive just from that set position till he makes contact. And he was hitting balls out at what was the old Cubs field, Hohokam, where the A's now train, out just to the right of that scoreboard, out into deep, deep left center on a regular basis. And I knew he wasn't going to stay in that league very long. Just had a problem staying healthy. But then once he got back from the injury at the beginning of last year, I think we finally saw all of it come together. The eye at the plate, the power, the speed, and a little bit of the defense, too.
Hey, Keith, let's project ahead. Let's go to the trade deadline this year and say all these kids are healthy and they're all maturing as expected, and the Cubs are in contention. Who is the most likely name or names to be moved in this deal, say for Cole Hamels?
I think Javier Baez is the one that the Cubs front office, they'd hope he could reestablish some value and potentially trade him, because they've got Russell to potentially play short, maybe slide Castro to second. Arismendi Alcantara can play 3 different positions for them. Baez, not that they don't like him, but I think they realize that they have better players coming, and they could still be just as potent of an offense, even if they use him to go acquire pitching. And Hamels would be really be an ideal fit for them.
Chopper down to third, and the race is on. The inning is over. Keith, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you during the season. ESPN insider Keith Law. Travis Wood, the pitcher, pinch hits to lead off the inning, and homers up onto the berm in the left field, much to the delight of some of the other pitchers on the Cubs staff. 8-4 Angels and 5. Let's take a look at the American League West. What happened last year? The Texas Rangers, decimated by injuries, lost 95 games. Houston's getting better. They won 70, but still were 22 games under 500. Seattle missed the playoffs by 1 game, and they appear to have gotten stronger in the offseason. Oakland losing the wild card game to Kansas City. A lot of offseason moves for the A's, and the Angels with the best record in baseball last year, trying to get deeper in the postseason than they got a year ago. There are a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, guys, who are saying the Seattle Mariners are the team to beat in the American League West. How do you guys feel?
I'm one of them.
You got your hand up?
I'm one of them.
Right,
I got the Seattle Mariners going to the World Series.
All right, tell us why.
Well, first, the addition of Nelson Cruz, the addition of Seth Smith, I thought was terrific. Justin Ruggiano to help make up an outfield platoon. They added Ricky Weeks. He's also expected the platoon. And the development of their young pitching. To hear the Cubs players, staff talk about Taijuan Walker, the young pitcher who started for the Mariners against them last night, he has caught everybody's eye, has not allowed a run in spring training. Eventually, and they may have some service time type issues as the Cubs are with Chris Bryant, and we don't know when Taijuan Walker is going to be in the big leagues, but whenever he gets here, he's a guy, Schill, who could have some high impact. I asked Jack Sorensic, the Seattle general manager, for a comp, and he kind of hesitated. He made clear, look, I'm not talking about his record, I'm talking about his athleticism. Bob Gibson. And that's a big reason why I'm picking the Mariners.
Yeah, I like a lot of the teams right now. Again, I always wait till the end of spring training. I want to see who breaks healthy and how far away is Garrett Richards really. I like the Angels potentially. I think C.J. Wilson is going to be an enormous piece for them, and counting on him for me is kind of a troubling thing coming out of camp. Honestly, the team that I'm going to be interested to watch in that division is going to be the Astros. I think they have a ton of young talent, and they being able to follow that, it's starting to come together for them a little bit. And I'd like to see Appel and what he actually is. And some of the younger prospects they have, kind of like what the Cubs are doing.
Going to be a lot of power for Houston. Going to be a lot of swinging and missing for Houston.
A lot of swinging and missing. Of the top, I believe, of the top 19 players in terms of strikeout rates last year, the Astros have 6 of last year's top 19 strikeout rates. We saw the Atlanta Braves strike out a lot in recent seasons. I think they're going to be a lot like them. I'm interested to watch Oakland because they turned over their roster again. Yeah. And the one thing we know about Billy Beane, when he makes trades, he always seems to pick the best players on the other teams. At one point he picked Josh Donaldson, and now he's turned him around, flipped him. We'll see how those guys translate this year.
Neil Ramirez strikes out Taylor Featherston for the first out here in the top of the 6th inning. We're at Sloan Park in Mesa, Arizona. The Angels leading the Cubs 8-4. The batter now, Johnny Giavotella. We talked about this second base battle, and we'll ask Mike Socia about it in the bottom half of the inning. He's going to join us. Giavotella has certainly helped his cause today. He's got a couple of hits and a stolen base. Well, I think when you look at the American League especially, you can make a case for so many teams in each division as potentially being the best team in that division. So I don't know if you call that parity or uncertainty or what you want to call it, but it could be a wild season.
I think Tim Kirkjian framed it best. Our friend on Baseball Tonight, he said that the most difficult thing to decide in the American League this year is who's the 4th place team in the American League Central in a division that has the Cleveland Indians, who look like they have great pitching. Corey Kluber, Cy Young Award winner. You got the Detroit Tigers, have won that division, 4 consecutive years. Yep. The White Sox loaded up during the wintertime, and the Kansas City Royals, who only played in the World Series. And you could really play that same sort of game in the American League East.
I agree. Yep.
Teams all bunched together.
Yep.
I think the only team out of the East is Tampa.
How about Giavotella making a case for himself? And he's going to try to get into second base and will slide in with a double, his 3rd hit of the game.
One of the things I can tell you about Mike Socia is he always played the game right. And he will watch. Obviously, performance is the key here, but he always watches the little things. He was at full speed from step 1 out of the box, and those are the kind of things that in addition to being talented, that I know Socia loves.
So 3rd hit for Giavotella. He's in scoring position with 1 out here in the 6th inning, and the batter is Colin Cowgill, 0 for 2.
As you always hear in spring training how it doesn't matter, tell that to Johnny Giavotella. He basically lost his opportunity in Kansas City. He comes here. The job is waiting for someone to grab it. These few days at the end of spring training may be like a turning point in his career if he continues to play this way.
There are some urban legends, I think, in spring training that I probably should help debunk. Number one, when they tell you at the beginning of camp, hey, listen, you're throwing in the bullpen, you're not trying to make the team today. Yes, you are. You're always trying to make the team as a young player. Position players, it's the same way. You know, hey, don't put too much pressure on yourself. There is more pressure on a young player in spring training. It's postseason pressure. That's what they feel. And it's not a bad thing, but it's absolutely, it's funny how they try and kind of cover that up and hey, listen, just go out and throw nice and easy.
Just work on your pitches.
Yep, not going to happen. I'm throwing all four. I show up day one ready to go. But you get to find out a lot about mental makeup for young players because there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure here.
You know, one of the things that you hear about the four, Featherston, Giavotella, Green, and Rutledge, who are battling in essence for 2 spots, is they've all become really good friends. They all hang out together, and there's no animosity between them, even though they realize probably 2 of them will stay and 2 of them will go.
Chill, how does that happen in a clubhouse?
Well, everybody gets it, and for the most part,
Giavotella's running on the play, fly ball to left field. The catch will be made by Bryant. Throw back to second, and he will double him off. Well, Mike Socia not happy, but Chris Bryant in his first game in the outfield gets tested and makes a catch and then doubles off a runner.
He's going. I don't know situationally if that was a given or on his own. But again, everybody talks about, he's in left field. This kid's a good athlete. And that nice, easy throw, good pick at second by Baez as well.
Mike Socia will join us when we come back for the bottom half of the inning. But first, another BBTN update. Back to Orlando with Carl and the guys.
So I think they need a real hitter in the 5-hole.
Now, are you hitting Trout third and Pujols fourth, or are you hitting them 2-3?
I don't know.
I don't think they have a fourth hitter if they hit him 2-3, a legitimate fourth hitter.
I know the guy that can answer that question, Dan, and I bet you'll ask him that question, or Kurt.
All right, Carl, guys, thank you. So we go to the bottom of the 6th inning. Thanks for the Baseball Tonight update. And the guy that Carl is referencing is the manager of the Los Angeles Angels, Mike Socia, who probably just got a little bit more analysis of his team than he may have wanted.
I'm really confused now, Dan. I thought we had it set.
They just solved all your problems now. They just fixed you.
Or they gave us a whole new set of them. We're not sure.
Well, Why don't we start? We will get to the lineup, but why don't we start with the guy on the mound right now? Jared Weaver's over 90 pitches, back out there for the 6th inning. How you liking what you're seeing today?
I like Weave just for the fact that he can mix and match. He threw some fastball with some good life on it, and you know, he just knows how to go out there and compete. And he'll be important for us this year. He's right on track. This will be his last hitter, so I'm going to have to cut this interview a little short to make a pitching change in a second. He won't be very happy, but he's just so good, at everything he does.
So we're going to lose you now. That was quite coy of you, Mike, to plan it that way.
I'll be back in a second.
All right, all right. We'll see if he comes back after the pitching change. We'll try to get Mike again after the pitching change. He says Jared Weaver won't be happy, even though it's March. But the boss is the boss. Sixth, Angels and Cubs, Dan Shulman, Kurt Schilling, Buster Olney, and a man of his word, Mike Socia, went out and made a pitching change, came back, and is joining us again. Thank you for doing that, Mike. We appreciate it.
All right, Dan.
And maybe you can respond to some of the things that Carl and Tim and Booney were talking about in Orlando. You got asked about it a lot last year. Where do you hit Trout? Where do you hit Pujols? Now with Kendrick gone, how do you see your lineup sorting itself?
Well, we put a lot of thought into this over the winter, and I think the fact of moving Mike from leadoff to second, you saw how many more RBI opportunities he got. He went over 100 RBIs, and I think that had a lot of merit to it. With a guy like Albert, you want to keep these guys connected. You don't want them to get too far down. If we had a legitimate 1-2 on base combination, you might consider moving Mike 3 and hitting Albert 4, but right now, we like Mike 2, we like Albert 3. We like to mix and match behind Albert with Matt Joyce or David Freese or C.J. Cron, wherever the matchup might be, and try to get our lineup deep.
Mike, one of the big questions coming into your spring training, the condition of Garrett Richards. Where does he stand right now?
He's good. He just threw four innings and went 4-60 in a minor league game a couple days ago. Threw a bullpen today, felt great, and we expect him his next outing to get into the 5th inning in a rehab start in the minor leagues, a minor league game, and then we're going to take it one step at a time. We're going to be cautious with Garrett, but we expect him back definitely before May 1st if he stays on track.
Hey, so I compete. Oh, wait.
Ball line by Old. And all the way to the fence. Past diving Joyce, and Old on his way to third, and a wide throw. Backed up by the pitcher, the new pitcher, Vinny Pastano, in foul territory. Old's at third.
That's a new twist to cut off from relays. I don't know if we lined up correctly, had a shot at him at third. Johnny just got it out of his glove too soon.
So sorry. I competed against you as a player, as a manager, and I've watched over the last couple of years. Last year, you guys had an amazing regular season, and then the quick exit in October. Are you feeling any added pressure from upstairs to get deeper into the postseason this year, or from any source?
I think it's been the same for 16 years. I don't call it pressure. I think our expectations are always high. We've had him since the first day that I got an opportunity here in the year 2000. And nobody has higher expectations than I do. And nobody took it harder last year how we had a great regular season and then struggled in the playoffs than I did. But as far as support, I think we're a good team up top. And Artie Moreno down to John Carpino, down to Jerry DePoto give us a lot of support. And I don't think it's pressure. We have high expectations, sure, but we want to go out there and not miss any steps, just take it step by step.
Angels manager Mike Socia joining us from field level. Socia, you've got 4 guys battling for what appears to be 2 spots, a second base spot and maybe a utility spot. We've seen Giovatello have 3 hits today. Also had a base running situation last inning, and then the throw we just saw. Have you, in your mind, is there any separation between these 4 guys right now?
There's some things. I think each player has some pluses they can definitely bring, and some might come down to how they're going to fit into how the whole lineup fits in, what the needs of the lineup are. And no doubt Johnny gives us a good at bat at the plate. He's played well defensively too. But we have a lot of guys that have a lot of things that they can do to help to make us where we want to be. And there's a nice play by Johnny right there, and nice play by Chris. We got to work on that play again, guys. But it was a nice catch out there by Johnny anyway.
Mike, one of the players who's not here is Josh Hamilton. We're awaiting resolution of his situation. When that news broke, how did you handle that as manager with your players?
Well, it broke before spring training, and Josh had surgery and was rehabbing at the time. And you have to take these things in stride. You have to go about your day-to-day business. I think our guys realize how important Josh is to our lineup and can be. But the fact is, he's not here. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when he's coming back, and we're just going to process this as this is the team we have, and we're going to go out there and play good baseball.
Mike, we really appreciate the time. Have a great season, and we'll see you during the regular season.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Mike Socia doing yeoman's work there, doing an interview, changing a pitcher, coming back, doing an interview again. He has set the bar pretty high.
He's a multi-tooled manager, obviously.
And he can predict. He told us Jared Weaver was going to be upset when he went to take him out.
Yep. Well, he's got some experience. Jared Weaver's been upset every time he's come out and tried to take the ball from him. Tommy La Stella is the batter, the former Atlanta Brave, and he's trying to stick with the Cubs. And this is interesting because this plays into the Baez situation. If Baez does not make the team out of spring, then La Stella's got a chance to play second base for the Cubs. He can also play some third if that position is open. He could stick in a couple of different roles.
I think Theo's kind of giving you some insight into how this is going to play out. He's looking at the long term. The big picture always influences a lot of the things that he does, and I think rightfully so.
Theo's on deck right now. He's coming in top of the 7th to be grilled by Kurt Schilling.
With the Cub Blue.
And I asked Theo this morning about Baez and his ability to handle failure. Because, guys, you've seen, he's dealing with a lot of failure. And Theo said, based on what they've seen from him, he bounces back so quickly from a tough day and comes back the next day, again, ready to go to work.
This is Matt Caesar. You talked about young players and the pressure. This is a guy who has made an impression on his manager, Joe Madden. He's got some speed. He's got an infield hit here in this game, hit a triple, scored a run yesterday. He has opened Joe Madden's eyes, and Joe Madden likes the energy that he brings to the game. Will not be a starter, but has a chance to make the club. Chris Denorfia's got a hamstring issue right now, and if Denorfia is not ready to start healthy at the beginning of the season, then Caesar's got a shot.
Well, 2 things. Number 1, as a young player, that's what you want to do. You want them to remember you in a good way. Number 2, that you can pronounce his name based on the way it's spelled is just nothing short of mind-boggling for me.
I would say most of the pregame preparation today went into the pronunciation of this name.
There is no vowel there.
No.
There's a U somewhere in there.
Caesar.
Wow. How does... Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Popped up. And the inning is over. Mike Socia's been a busy man. They got to work on some cutoffs and relays. Got to take a pitcher out. He's got to do an interview. He's got to break from it in the middle. And then he comes on back to finish the job. Theo Epstein, president of baseball ops for the Cubs. Next half inning. It's a beautiful afternoon here in Arizona with the Angels leading the Cubs 8-4. Dan Shulman and Kurt Schilling, Buster Olney, and joined by the president of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs, Theo Epstein. Thanks for joining us, Theo.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
First of all, beautiful facility. I mean, second year, this place is something else.
Yeah, they did a great job. City of Mesa stepping up, and all the folks on the Cubs business side really created a little baseball paradise for us down here.
Now, I don't know if you heard, but in the fourth inning, Schill said that he was your favorite all-time player. Is that true?
Absolutely. If he says it, has to be true. Everything he says is always true.
That's very fair.
Everything he tweets is always true.
I love it. Never worked that way when I played, but I love it.
Tell us, we've got a lot, as you can imagine. We've got a lot to ask you, but if we could briefly, can we go back to I'm curious about the meeting in the RV with Joe Madden and Pensacola. I mean, this is not standard operating procedure for trying to hire a new manager.
It was no Schilling residence in Paradise Valley for Thanksgiving, that's for sure. So it's my second most interesting meeting of all time after Sean Dudd and Kurt for Thanksgiving. But no, yeah, it was unusual. I'd never been in an RV before growing up in the middle-class home in the Northeast. I'd never found my way to one, but it was awesome. You know, Joe had us meet him at this RV park in Pensacola. We were right on the water. We sat in lawn chairs right on the beach and talked baseball for 6 hours and went to dinner. It was a great time.
Schill wants to ask you the Chris Bryant questions. Is that okay with you?
No, I already told him. I'm prepping. So
I take back everything I said about him speaking the truth.
All right, so
I disagree with you.
So right on the table right now, if he doesn't break spring training with you guys, the 25 best players in the Cubs organization are not going to Chicago. I know you well enough to know there's a long-term plan and all those things, but if I'm a player and I come to you and say, hey, listen, you know, I'm assuming you're expected to contend and try win everything you can win this year. How can you tell us that we're trying to win everything if you're not taking the best 25 guys going?
Yeah, I think it's very rare that teams take the 25 best players, the 25 most talented players. I mean, you remember from your years in the Boston organization that there was a spring training when Hanley Ramirez put on a show in spring training. He was probably one of our 9 best position players, but he needed more seasoning, went out to Double-A. Dustin Pedroia was probably one of our top guys. Jacoby Ellsbury, when he went back. On the pitching side, Buchholz in camp was one of the most 25 talented guys. At one point, Jonathan Papelbon was. It's just commonplace for players to complete their development, at least the way we've done it. The way we've done it in Boston for 10 years and the way we've done it here for 3 years. That the most talented players, the best players, it's not always the right time for them. They need to complete their development. There are things to learn in the minor leagues. And I'm not talking about Chris because we haven't made that decision yet, but I'm just speaking generally. There's something to be said for doing player development the proper way, seeing it through in the minor leagues. I like to call guys up for their major league debut in the middle of the season when they're in the flow of the game, the grind of the season, they're comfortable. I've never put a young prospect on an opening day roster who hadn't played in the big leagues previously. In 13 years, I've never done it. I'm not saying I'd never do it, but the general rule, the presumption is to allow those guys to go out, play, get comfortable, get in rhythm, and then come up when we handpick just the right moment for them to have success.
But prevailing wisdom is that and I'll hypothetically say you leave here and he's not on your roster, he's in AAA, and 12 days into the season you guys call him up, and the business reasons make total sense. Everybody gets that, but that is a purely business decision. From a developmental perspective,
I just talked about and I want to speak. I'm speaking in general terms. I think it's not fair to Chris. Let's take a step. You want to ask me a question about Chris Bryant? You want me to talk about Chris Bryant? I will say that Chris Bryant is an outstanding young man. He was raised absolutely the right way by Mike and Sue Bryant. They did a great job with him. This kid, if I had a daughter, he's the type of guy you'd want to marry your daughter. He's first class, he's professional, he's mature, he cares about his teammates, he handles adversity really well. He's constantly looking
about $9 billion in his career.
I hope he does. And he's constantly looking to get better. He's got a growth mindset. He wants to win. He wants to be a Cub. He wants to win a World Series for the Cubs. So it's an absolute pleasure having this guy in the organization. I'm thrilled that we took him in the draft a couple years ago. I'm thrilled with everything he's done in a Cubs uniform, and I'm thrilled that he's forcing this conversation with how well he's played. He's gone out and look at what he's Golden Spikes winner. Then he goes out and he wins a Florida State League championship for us. Then he goes to the Arizona Fall League and he wins the MVP. Then he has 43 home runs last year. And now he's having a great spring training. Everything's going right. We're thrilled with him. It's a great story. This focus on whether he happens to make his major league debut on April 5th or May 5th or June 5th or April 13th or whenever it is, I think the big picture is he's going to be a Cub for a long time. We're thrilled to have him. we have a certain way of breaking players into the big leagues. I've done it. We're not always right. Not always right. It was just like, this game is so unpredictable. It's imperfect. And we don't think we have it figured out. The second you think you have this game figured out, it'll humble you in a hurry. But the track record, the way we do things, is we like guys to get off in the minor leagues, get comfortable. In Chris's case, he has missed some time this spring. He hasn't had a ton of reps defensively at third base. He has one full professional season under his belt. So it's not, I know you think it's about the business side of the game. We haven't even gotten there because we're focusing on the baseball part of the game and his development, and we'll see what path he follows. But the big picture and what everyone's going to remember for a long time is that this is a great young man, who's raised the right way, and it's a privilege for us to have him in the Cubs organization.
Theo, Scott Boras, who represents Kris Bryant, has been very outspoken about his perception of the Cubs' handling of this situation. And Tom Ricketts, Cubs owner, has responded. You've responded to, as Scott has made statements. The back and forth, are you at all concerned that this could affect the relationship between the Cubs and Kris Bryant?
No, I'm not concerned. I have a lot of respect for Scott. Scott's doing his job the way he sees fit for his client. I'm more concerned about my relationship with Kris than the relationship with Scott, which is also good. But we drafted Kris for a lot of off the field reasons as well as for the on field talent, and then he's a fine young man, and we enjoy our relationship with him. And I think he knows, whatever happens with this situation, that we care about him, that we're going out of our way to put him in a position to succeed, and that we see him as part of this potentially, tremendous generation of young talent that's all coming up around the same time that have a chance to do some special things together. And I've talked with him as I've talked with other young players in the past. There are going to be moments when we're on the opposite sides of the table. It comes up from time to time, whether it's an arbitration hearing or a contract issue. Shill and I have been on opposite sides of the table. And as long as you treat each other with respect and you understand where you're coming from, and you recognize that 98% of the time you're going to be wearing the same uniform, pulling for one another, and that our interests are really aligned, that I want the best for Kris Bryant. I know he wants the best for his Cub teammates and the Cubs organization. Things will be fine.
People in Chicago are intimately familiar with the construction at Wrigley. For people around the country, tell us about some of the changes that are being made.
Well, we have a long-term restoration project going on, and the whole goal for the Ricketts family and for the business side of the organization is to ensure that the Cubs are playing baseball in Wrigley Field for another 100 years, so that future generations get to enjoy Cubs baseball where their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents did. And this is phase one, where they're putting in a new video board in left field and redoing the bleachers. And importantly for the baseball side, we get a brand-new clubhouse on opening day 2016. Mercifully, a quick inning. Get me out of this situation.
You're doing great. We're not taking a commercial. You got no choice. You're locked in.
What happened to capitalism when I need it? No commercials? Come on. It's ESPN for you.
Well, I think from a visiting player's perspective, the most important thing is the bathroom in the visiting dugout going to get fixed and adjusted.
No, I think somehow the visiting clubhouse renovation fell to the bottom of our list of priorities. I don't know how that happened. I have to see about that.
So the bleachers, the left field bleachers will be ready in May. The right field bleachers in June.
Yeah, I believe so. No one told us that it was going to be cold in Chicago in the winter, so we had to readjust.
Snuck up on people.
No, they're working extremely hard. The business side guys have a great plan. The construction workers, especially, have been just grinding through some tough weather, and it'll be open as soon as we can get it done.
And eventually, a hotel, bigger concourses, new food options, the whole deal.
Yeah, it's going to be a win-win situation. The fans get to enjoy the tradition of Wrigley, but with modern amenities, our ball players will get all the accoutrements that they're used to. It'll look a lot like Yankee Stadium's new home clubhouse when it's done, second biggest in all of baseball. And then the surrounding area will get an economic boost from all the traffic around the ballpark with the commercial development and the plans to expand the circle of the ballpark.
Baseball fans around the game know about the prospects here. You've put together a tremendous talent pool of young players, both on the mound and at the plate. Some guys that maybe aren't out there right now, younger guys that you have that you people should be paying attention to?
Sure. Well, let's see who's not playing tonight. You guys got a pretty good prospect lineup in there today. I was glad you got to see that. But Kyle Schwarber is a kid we took in the first round last year, left-handed bat who might be as good a pure hitter as we have in the organization. Also has tremendous power, and we think he's got a good chance to stay behind the plate. He made great strides with his with his receiving, working on his blocking and his throwing. But he's going to go out to be our catcher in Double-A. And you know, we're a little bit right-handed. If you look out there and you see the Bryants and the Russells and the Solaires and the Baezes of the world, so to get that good left-handed stick to go with Rizzo and really balance out our lineup would be important for us. And then C.J. Edwards is a right-handed pitcher that we got in the trade with Texas for Matt Garza. He had an outstanding spring, bounced back from season last year that was limited a little bit due to injury, and he was outstanding. The finish on his fastball was back. He showed off a much more consistent curveball, working on his changeup, and he's someone that we could see pretty soon at Wrigley Field as well.
You have Starlin Castro as your shortstop. He's proven in the big leagues. You also have Addison Russell, considered to be one of the best prospects in baseball. He's also a shortstop. I get asked this question all the time, Theo. I'll put it to you. How do you solve that?
Those are the problems we'd love to have. You know, it's shortstops end up all over the diamond in baseball. And the only time I see a problem with a surplus at one position is when you're talking about the other end of the defensive spectrum. And you have too many left fielders and there's nowhere for them to go. There's too many first basemen, too many guys who are going to end up as DHs, American League players, and we're in the National League. But shortstops, they end up at second base. Third base, they end up in center field. You know, the Hall of Fame is littered with the guys who came up as shortstops and went to other positions. So we think it's a great issue for us. You know, Starlin only made 15 errors all last year. He really took a step forward with his defense. Addison Russell made 3, playing shortstop at Double-A last year. Both really athletic guys who can swing the bat, and good hits for the game. Russell's been extremely impressive here in camp, making a great impression in his first spring training in the Cubs organization. So he's got a bright future, and we're not worried about where he's going to play as long as he's on the field for us. And there are spots for all these guys. We can put our 9 most talented players on or our 8 most talented players on the field together at the same time. There are different permutations where it works out.
You comfortable with where John Lester's at after the work this morning again?
Yeah, he threw well this morning. Buster was there watching, and he was free and easy. He was up to 93. He had pretty good command. He was working on his field with his cutter. But he looked like John Lester in the spring training game, about 1 start away from the real deal.
We see the swing from Baez, how hard he swings. When he hits it, it goes, but there's a lot of swinging and missing. Do you think he needs to make a significant adjustment in his swing to be successful at the big league?
Maybe more approach than swing, but this kid does so many other things well that I don't think he's never going to be a high contact guy. He's not going to be a guy who handles the bat. Maybe he's not going to be the world's greatest situational hitter, but he's such a threat up there. He can play really good middle infield, run the bases really well. His instincts, you've seen some of his base running instincts here tonight on display. But he gets it. When you see him do work on the side and the drills, he has enough body control, enough athleticism, enough feel for his swing to make adjustments. Now it's just the process of bringing him into the game, which is a lot of times the last thing to come. So he is not someone I would bet against because he's just a really good baseball player, and we think that'll translate into his approach in the box in time. And Joe Madden's a really big fan. That's a good guy to have in your corner. Joe's there supporting him, and we think that he'll manage to make those adjustments as Addison sends one up the middle.
Has himself an infield hit. Have you, and I know you won't tell us what the number is or what the answer is, but do you have a goal for this team in mind for this year?
Yeah, our goal is to win the National League Central. Anthony Rizzo was the first one to say that, so you can blame him. He said at the last game of Game 162 of the regular season last year. I think it reflects the fact that we are transitioning. We spent the last 3 seasons here, in a mindset where we were simply out to acquire young talent. We were really single-minded about it. I think we've done a pretty good job at doing it. And now, as we look ahead to future years, our goal is to win a World Series. And that process isn't complete by any stretch. We haven't accomplished anything yet. We've been a 5th-place club for a number of years now. So we are not going to puff our chest out at simply having an interesting group of young players. But once you start to transition and you're competing, you have to set the bar high. If you don't, you're not being sort of honest with yourself. So we are absolutely out to win this year. I think some of the moves we made this winter reflected, and it's great for our young players to feel that, to be held accountable for not just their potential, but their performance, and not their counting numbers, but how they contribute to winning baseball, whether it's moving a runner or showing up to the park every day prepared to play, to feel what it takes to win.
You talked about your meeting with Joe Madden. How is he translating with your team, given the players, given the history?
Oh, fantastic! It's a hand in glove type fit. I mean, he's got so much energy, so much optimism. I think the closer you get to Joe, one thing I learned this spring is, he's such a character. Sometimes those guys, the closer you get to them, you realize it's a bit of an act. But in Joe's case, the closer you get to him, the more you realize it's completely authentic. And it's genuine. He comes from a great place. He cares about people. He cares about the game. And it's an infectious approach. And the players start to reflect Joe's personality. They play loose. They play free. They play easy. They play with the joy of the game, respect for the game, with spring in their step. And it's really been contagious throughout the whole organization. It's a pleasure to have as a partner.
I'm curious. I've always enjoyed listening to you talk about how you evaluate players. How are you evaluating Cuba? It clearly a very different place now to bring players out of and sign players.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating question, and you could say it's, in a lot of ways, it's sort of $100 million or $1 billion question, if you look forward to what might be out there. But I think everyone has to stop and reevaluate. If you look at just the extreme elite performances of guys like Puig and Abreu the last few years, there's something going on there that's special. And in other words, we see the graphic to support it. But the man at the plate right now is someone that we signed as a very young player, sort of a prospect coming out of Cuba. And he's really developed well. He has an advanced feel for the strike zone. He's a physical to go with just the physical tools that jump out at you. And that combination gives him an extremely high ceiling. He's a great kid. And we look forward to him being in a Cub uniform for a long time. But Cuba's a lot of clubs right now discussing how to get involved and optimize it. A lot of clubs waiting around for MLB to make a ruling. I know they're going to handle it the right way.
Above and beyond the call of duty. Thanks for putting up with us for a full inning.
One full inning, and you mean full.
Hey, you put up with him for years. This is child's play.
It's great to be back at Curtin soon. That's great.
Thanks very much. Have
Guys.
a great season. Okay. Take care. As we go to the 8th inning, it's an 8-4 lead for the Angels over the Cubs, and some of the regulars show for the Angels are done. They're beating traffic out of here.
Yeah, these guys are, for the most part, they're all veterans. That's what you do with your veterans late in camp.
Yep. So there's Trout, and Pujols, and Ibar, and some of the others making an early getaway.
And they're probably driving themselves back. And no team bus. Team bus is for the young guys.
Josh Rutledge has come into the game. He will bat to lead off the 8th inning for the Angels. The new pitcher for the Cubs is left-hander Zach Roskup. Split last year between the Cubs and AAA. And breaking ball swung on and missed by Rutledge. As Roscoe pitched very well at AAA, an ERA in the low 2s, but had an ERA over 9 in his time with the Cubs last year. And that is all for Rutledge. So he watches a guy who's battling for a job with Giovatelli get 3 hits, and he comes on for 1 at bat and strikes out on 3 pitches. Tough day. Pitch Hit and Run presented by Scott's is the official youth skills competition of Major League Baseball. It's free for boys and girls ages 7 to 14. Play your way to the national finals and have the chance to compete during All-Star Week in Cincinnati. Find a local competition in your area at pitchhitrun.com. Baseball is back with MLB.com at bat on your smartphone or tablet. Stay connected with highlight stats, live radio broadcast, breaking news, and more. Download MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. Two down after the fly ball off the bat of Carlos Perez to right field. Quick couple of outs for Roscoe. And now it'll be Grant Green. So we have had a chance to see all 4 of the contestants, if you will, for the second base and utility job of the Angels team heading into the season.
So before the game, I asked the same question to Chris Bryant that I posed to Theo Epstein there about how this could affect the relationship between Bryant and the Cubs. And his response was, hey, I'm a professional. It's an honor to put on the Cubs uniform. There's no organization that I could see more of an honor for. And we continued to talk, and he told me, Dan, that he is a year away of finishing at University of San Diego his degree. And I asked him, well, what's your major? And he goes, finance. And he heard himself, and he smiled. He said, and maybe this will come in handy to understand all of this.
Yeah, there's a chance he'll have some money to invest at some point.
I think Chris Bryant doesn't need the degree. He's already a finance major. By the way, he said he's going to finish his degree.
Good.
Absolutely said he's going to get the last hours he needs.
The batter is Featherston. 0 for 2 in a sacrifice. Joe, did you get the answers you were looking for from your former GM?
I always got the answers I was looking for. Whether I wanted them or not, he gave them to me.
Yeah.
But that was one of the reasons I loved playing for him was he never had to wonder where Theo stood on something. And
he never had to wonder where you stood.
No, and for better or worse, excuse me, I always enjoyed people who would tell me, when you want me to shut up, just say shut up. And Theo never had a problem, or Tito, telling me to shut up. But I love talking baseball with him because he's clearly, Theo is one of the first guys to open my eyes to the fact that you can be really, really smart about this game, having never played in the big leagues. And the whole team that he surrounded himself, Jed Hoyer and all of the guys he brought in there, really, really smart baseball people and good guys, which made it even more enjoyable.
There are not many people in baseball now or ever who have had as unique an opportunity, and he's made the most of it, obviously, to break one curse and then try to break the other. I mean, that's pretty heavy stuff.
And he's going to break both.
This organization will win a World Series under Theo Epstein. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I like this new K-Zone thing we're doing this year with it up there. I like. There's something I didn't realize it was going to give you that it does after watching it, which is you're going to start to see who the better catchers are. You're going to start to see catchers that will take a ball and make it a strike, right. and they do it very subtly, and you'll start to notice the numbers, and you also see guys that'll do the other thing. They'll take the ball out of the strike zone and get strikes called balls.
Yeah, framing is something that you didn't hear discussed much, certainly not mathematically or analytically a few years ago, but now that's one of the latest things that sabermetricians are trying to quantify.
Well, and it's part of the reason why the Cubs traded for Miguel Montero, but Chill will appreciate this. When I approached Montero today to talk to him about that, he almost ran in the other direction. He said, I'd rather be known for my hitting than my receiving, because what he's scared to death of, clear from our conversation, the perception that he's trying to steal strikes from umpires.
And good umpires will acknowledge guys are good there are guys that they love to catch. They love to call games behind because they make it easy or easier. And they're not stealing pitches. They're presenting them to the umpire better than other guys. And then there are guys who have soup cans on their hands.
Ground ball to short. Inning is over. We go to the bottom of the 8th as we move into evening here in Mesa with the Angels leading the Cubs 8-4. And some of the big leaguers, some of the starters get an early start out. Back at the spring training home of the Chicago Cubs, Sloan Park in Mesa. The Angels lead the Cubs 8-4. We talked a little bit about it with Theo Epstein when he was with us. There's a lot of construction going on at Wrigley Field right now. You can see the left field bleachers and the right field bleachers. They're not there right now. They are being completely redone. The latest schedule has the left field bleachers being done by mid-May. The right field bleachers probably in June. A harsh winter, of course, and that has slowed down the construction a little bit over the course of the next few years. There will be new clubhouses for home and away, bigger concourses, new food options, a hotel, all kinds of, even the press box is being upgraded at Wrigley Field. And we are expecting to see Adam Wainwright and John Lester as the 2015 baseball season opens up at Wrigley Field Sunday night, the 5th of April. Dress warm.
Might be one of the first years they've opened up with somewhat similar expectations, which is nice.
Yep. Now ball pulled foul by Rizzo.
And like I said, as a player, visiting player in Wrigley, the only thing I care about is that restroom by the dugout. Because
that's it.
Because
that was it. The whole ballpark.
Well, that toilet got destroyed pretty much 5 times a week.
Yeah, that's true.
How many times did you break?
Just 3. Just 3. I paid for it.
With a bat?
Yeah.
How would that process work out?
Well, but it's amazing how easy porcelain does break with a baseball bat. You don't realize it until you actually do it, and then it becomes kind of cathartic.
So would you go to the clubhouse manager and just hand him a check?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Just give him a check, sign my name to it, and say just whatever it costs. Give yourself a lot of extra.
Morin on the mound. Back-to-back changeups thrown to Rizzo. He missed the first one, but he was all over the second one, lining a double into right center. Rizzo's second hit, second double of the game. And his afternoon is over. Jonathan Moda into right. Here's Arismendi Alcantara. We spoke of him a little bit earlier. Alcantara, a natural infielder, has also started playing some outfield as of last year with the Cubs. And it seems all but certain that he is on the team. Just the question will be in what role. Probably a super utility role for Joe Madden. He's batting for Mike Olds, who homered earlier today. More in the fourth pitcher of the ball game for the Angels. Jared Weaver to Vinny Castano to Fernando Salas. Now Morin here in the eighth as he misses outside, ball one. Last year Morin had a .290 ERA in 59 innings as a rookie with the Angels.
On what was a greatly improved bullpen during the course of that year. I actually thought Jerry Dipoto, their general manager, should have gotten consideration for executive of the year the way he made that over.
Completely remade. Yeah. Fly ball to right field for out number one, where she'll mention that, you know, or one of the guys mentioned that for one of the few times recently the Cardinals and Cubs come in with pretty similar expectations this year. That's in spite of the rough year the Cubs had last year, but it was the beginning of the new era. Lots of young players starting to make their way to the majors. Cincinnati had a tough year, and their pitching's a lot different. They've traded some pitchers away. Milwaukee led the division for most of the season, then faded in September. Pittsburgh made the postseason again. Lost in the wild card game to Madison and Bumgarner in San Francisco. And the Cardinals won the division. And so impressive and somewhat overlooked, amazingly, to play in the National League Championship Series 4 consecutive years in this era of baseball is a pretty special accomplishment. Now ball short for out number two. Guys, handicap this division for us right now. Who's winning it? How many playoff teams come out of the NL Central?
I've got two coming out of the Central. I've got the Pirates winning the division. I've got the Cardinals finishing second and making it as a wild card. I actually have the Pirates winning the World Series. I think this is a team that more and more year by year reminds me of the Cardinals in terms of the culture and the depth, and they get to build around maybe the best player in the National League in Andrew McCutchen with a young pitching staff that's backed up by a group of tremendous prospects. That, to me, is a really dangerous team. And I remember the Giants players before that wild card game saying to me they thought the Pirates were the best team in the National League as the playoffs started.
Go down to second, runner back in. Show.
I think when you look around that division, if Joey Votto's healthy and Cueto is Cueto and the Reds are good, they could win the division. I mean, it's interesting to look. I think the team that will be challenged in that division to win the most would probably be the Cubs, just because of I have no idea how good these young players are going to be. I think their ceiling is high. I'm done betting against the Cardinals. They're so good at player development, and they're a model everybody now is trying to emulate. And the Cubs, I think, are doing a great job of it. But I think this division over the next couple of years is going to be a whole lot of fun to watch begin again.
Yeah. You talk about pitching depth, and boy, do the Cardinals have it. I mean, with guys like Jaime Garcia and Carlos Martinez and Marco Gonzalez competing for the fifth spot in a rotation.
Well, and you've been around the game long enough, Buster, too. You don't start a season with 5 big league starters. Right. You have to have 6 to 7. Yeah. And you have to have, to me, to compete, a 15 to 16-man staff. And that means you have to have guys in AAA that can come out and not just pitch, but can come up and win in the big leagues.
8-4, the Angels lead the Cubs, bottom of the 8th inning here in Mesa.
And you know another reason to pick the Pirates? Andrew McCutchen cut his hair. Did you guys see that?
I was born and raised a Pirate fan, so I'm ready for it.
You were born and raised a Pirate
fan? I was.
Fan.
My dad was born in Somerset, so I grew up with We Are Family.
Oh, Parker and Stargell and that whole group?
Omar Moreno catching the last out of 79.
Yeah.
Jumped up, threw my hand in the ceiling fan, and broke it.
What a different look for Andrew McCutchen this year, huh?
I don't care what his hair looks like. The guy can just flat out play.
And you know what? By the end of the year, he will be the center of what could be the best outfield in baseball. You get Starling Marte in left, Gregory Polanco, who just looks like he's going to be a star. We'll see how he develops during the course of the year.
Hot shot to second, but that will end the inning. We're through 8. Here with the Mesa, it remains the Angels 8 and the Cubs 4. Fantasy Baseball is back on ESPN.com. Access real-time scoring, gain expert advice, manage your team, and do it all on the go from your mobile phone. ESPN Fantasy Baseball. Sign up today for free before the season is here at ESPN.com/fantasy baseball.
Pick Matt Harvey.
Oh, boy. Yeah. You like the 99-mile-an-hour fastball?
I think he's healthy and he's going to have some. It's kind of a obvious thing to say, but my goodness.
I talked to an evaluator who saw his last start, and he said that is as good as you can be. That is Hall of Fame caliber. That's how good he was. And, of course, the difference is, and I think, Dan, you pointed it out in the meeting yesterday, he's not a guy who's just a year removed from his surgery. He had it like 17 months ago. Yeah. And so the Mets, coming into the spring training, they weren't sure what he was going to be. Now, it looks like he could be the guy, like one of the best pitchers in baseball right out of the gate.
So Bartolo Colon is starting opening
day.
Boy.
Go Shill. Nope, I just got a little sick in my mouth when he said that. And Dustin Pedroia. Take Dustin.
Big comeback here?
He's going to have a big year.
No hand injury, no wrist injury.
He's going to. The laser show will air again.
Last 2 years, injuries to a hitter's hands.
Yep.
And early in the season, one of them was opening day, I think, 2 years ago.
And evaluators have looked at Pedroia and been concerned that all of these nagging injuries are taking away from his power, and they have wondered, Shill, if it will ever come back.
I'd say he's a 15 to 20 guy this year, but he does so much other stuff.
Ryan Schlitter is the new pitcher for the Cubs. Johnny Giovatella's up. He's had a big day at the plate. Speaking of pitchers, you had in your column today, Buster, some talk about 3 young pitchers who have really made big statements in the last 24 hours, even more than that, really.
Yeah, we talked about Taijuan Walker and the comparison physically to Bob Gibson as an athlete and the impact he could have on the Seattle Mariners. How about Daniel Norris of the Toronto Blue Jays? 21 years old, looks like he has a nice mix of 3-4 pitches. He could be a difference maker for that team. And Carlos Rodon, who was the 3rd pick in last year's draft, with the White Sox, sent down to the minor leagues today. He had 9 strikeouts in the game yesterday.
You wanted Matt Harvey, you got Matt Harvey. The guys in the truck have been working hard, and I got some Matt Harvey video for you. She'll tell us what you see.
Health. He's healthy. Here's the thing. He works. Good pitchers work in and out, and they can do up and down. He does it with both his fastballs, 6 different pitches. He is now able to reach back and get back into the upper 90s, and his makeup to me, he screams number 1.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Do you like him as much, being who you were as a pitcher? Do you like him as much for his makeup and his I want the ball and I want it now attitude as the raw stuff?
If I was starting a team today and I had any pitcher in the game to start with, he'd be my number 1.
Over Kershaw?
He would be my number 1. Absolutely.
Over Kershaw?
Absolutely. And again, you're talking about 2 guys that have Hall of Fame talent. I'm not saying Clayton Kershaw isn't good. I'm just saying Matt Harvey has everything I like.
Shill, why would you take, and I'm not challenging you, why would you take Matt Harvey over Kershaw?
Makeup. I think Matt Harvey wants to pitch game 1 of the season, game 1 of the playoffs. He wants to pitch the winner go home game. I feel like he exudes that, and I think that has an impact. Clayton Kershaw is one of the great. He's going to be a Hall of Fame pitcher. There's no question. I love his makeup. But October hasn't been kind to him. And I think you are either a dominating October pitcher or you're everybody else.
Does Clayton Kershaw have a chance to be?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. I mean, you're not ruling him out as a guy who...
No. Again, he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He's having one of the greatest runs in the history of the game.
Yep.
Well, and you guys had to have loved Clayton Kershaw, his acceptance of the most valuable player award. It says a lot about his personality of trying to get better. When he thanked his wife and he thanked his teammates, and then he finished it up by saying, and I want to thank the St. Louis Cardinals for reminding you you're never as good as you think you are.
Well, and Theo Epstein in a different role said the same thing when he was in here. He said as soon as you think you've got this game figured out, it humbles you. And that applies to every player too. Between foul balls and ice cream and piggyback rides and lounging on the berm up there, it's a good place to be a pitcher.
There's a lot of wriggling here.
I get the feeling you're going to be here, Dan, next spring, not in the broadcast booth.
I just have those basketball responsibilities I have to. This is fun. I've always said to friends, if you don't like spring training, you don't like baseball. I mean, spring training is great. It really is. We got a couple more spring training games coming your way before the regular season starts on April the 5th. And the season opener, you will see the Cubbies at home against the Cardinals. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN2 a week from Sunday. Batter is Daniel Robertson. 271 and 177 at bats with Texas last year. 29-year-old, originally a 33rd round pick of the San Diego Padres. And for every Bryant, there are a lot more Robertsons trying to find their way to the big leagues, and he did last year, trying to do it again this year, this time in a different uniform. Runner goes and a swing and a chopper up the third baseline. Bare hand play, and they got him, and the runner is out going to third. And Joe Madden's going to like the infield defense. One more look. La Stella at third, making the great play, and then the relay back. Alcantara there for the tag, and the inning is over. Just keeps getting better and better for these kids. That's how you win young fans. Oh, yeah. That's how you bring them back to the ball.
Got to buy them.
And I think we've established that next year you'll be knocking over those kids to catch that ball.
I can see that.
Absolutely.
I can totally see that.
and falling over the over the railing onto the warning track. Trevor Gott is in to pitch for the Angels.
Like the Ryan Freese home run in the World Series, those guys in St. Louis run it. I can see that. I can see you just
there
kids. It won't be pretty. They've had a good time. As have we. Trevor Gott into the game, as mentioned, for the Angels. Right-hander from Lexington, Kentucky, 22 years of age. Pitched at 3 different levels in the Angels organization last year, combined for an ERA of an even 3 in 52 appearances, all the appearances in relief. Javier Baez up for the 5th time. He has 2 hits and he has 2 strikeouts.
I don't know about you guys, but I come away from this game understanding more what you hear from the Cubs about things he does other than swing and miss at the plate.
The unfortunate thing is I'm not sure that those things are going to be enough to overcome 230 strikeouts if that ends up being, because as the season goes on, you're going to see staffs with game plans and pitchers that execute game plans, and
flatter away.
He's scared. He's scary when he puts the bat on the ball, but there are places you can throw where that's a challenge for him.
He didn't like that call.
Well, you can't. That's one. I think a challenge for young players. I don't think he was disagreeing. I think he was talking, because you saw the face. But
that's a 2-strike swing right there.
Well, he only has one. He only has one swing. I mean, there's only one swing there, and then part of that's he's as capable of beating you one as he's 3. Oh my goodness! See, now I'm on the 60-day DL right after that swing.
Nice play. Well, let's take a look at the approach at the plate for 2 of the Cubs' young players, Javier Baez, who we just saw, and Chris Bryant.
Very obvious. I mean, you look at the swings early in the count, swings taking swings that aren't real comfortable. All the same swing. Now, this is not just the fact that he takes these pitches, but watch how he takes them. As a pitcher, that's kind of frustrating. You're on the borders, you work around the corners of the strike zone. For a guy like Jared Weaver, he has to do that. And if you can't get that guy to get out of the strike zone, that's a problem.
Junior Lake sends one down the right field line, digging for 2, and in there.
Shall you use a phrase I remember last year a lot about non-competitive pitches for pitchers?
Yep.
Watching that plate appearance, I almost wonder if those are non-competitive swings. Pitchers pitch out of the zone.
It's one of those things when you watch video of a guy doing something like that, it completely changes what you think you can and can't do. I don't have to throw him a strike to get him out. And that, to me, is where the top of the rotation guys eat you up. And then you have to make your living on the 4s and 5s because you're not going to hit the 1s and 2s.
John Andreoli is pinch hitting for Chris Bryant with 2 outs here in the bottom of the 9th, and the Cubs down 8-4. Well, what did we learn today? Jared Weaver went out there and threw close to 100 pitches. We heard about John Lester's outing in a minor league game for the Cubs today. We talked a lot and heard a lot about the Cubs' thoughts about Chris Bryant and whether or not he will start the season of the big leagues. I think the feeling we all get from what we heard today is he will not be a Cub on opening day.
Dan, it's a no-brainer when you look at the business. You're trading 12 days at the beginning of the 2015 season for a full season. 12 days at the beginning of 2015 for all of 2021.
Completely understood. And on the other side of the coin, Curt Schilling says the message to the players in the clubhouse is
not a good one.
Not a good one. We'll find out a week from Sunday when we're at Wrigley Field. We don't know if Bryant will be there, but we know the Cubs will be there. We know the Cardinals will be there. And we know that we will be lucky enough to be there as well. The Angels beat the Cubs by a score of 8-4 here in Mesa. Time now for Baseball Tonight. Let's send it back to Orlando once again. Here is Carl Radich.